It
Very
is
good
said
evening.
that the brightness of your determination. It is
Yes,
said.
yes, carry on, Charmi, carry on.
Yes, sir. It is said that the brightness of your determination will light up the plan of your future. On this very note, a very good evening and happy Holi to one and all. I, CA Charmi Shah, extend a cordial welcome to all the dignitaries and participants to today's virtual session on global trends in internal audit, a look ahead. Before starting this VCM, I would like to thank the Internal Audit Committee of ICI for organizing the session. Today, we have with us galaxies of learned personalities with us in this VCM. I take the honor to welcome respected Central Council Member C.A. Charanjot Singh Nanda Sir, Vice Chairman Sir, Central Council Member C.A. Gyan Chandra Mishra Sir,
Recording in progress.
C.A. Anil Kakkar Sir, and our speakers for this evening, C.A. Chetan Thakkar Sir, Sambit Subhash Saraf Sir, and Ms. Bhavani Joyce Ma'am, who will join us shortly. I thank all the dignitaries invitees for accepting our invitation and making up despite your busy schedule. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us Chairman of Chandigarh Branch of NIRC of ICI, C.A. Anil Kakkar Sir. I give him a cordial welcome for his presence and request him to give opening remarks for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Charmi. Thanks a lot. Good evening to each and everyone, respected members. First of all, I, on the behalf of Chandigarh Branch, would like to thank Chairman C.A. Charanjot Nandaji, Central Council Member, and Vice Chairman Gyan Chandra Mishra Ji, Central Council Member of Internal Audit Standard Board of ICI, for giving our branch the opportunity to host the virtual CPE meet on the global trends in internal audit, a look ahead. Well, we all know the importance of internal audit. With the effective internal control system in any organization, we can access its internal controls, identify the potential risk involved in, and improve efficiency. Of course, ensure the compliances, improve the investor confidence, and a lot of internal audits benefits are there. And internal audit is an investment for the companies, but in long run, it pays off. I am not the expert on this topic, but we are fortunate enough to have with us today 3 experts on different topics. They are going to teach us on different topics. We have with us here Chetan Thakkar ji will take up the topic auditing culture and making intangible and tangible auditable. And another speaker we have CA Sumit Saraf ji will throw lights on how we plan the internal audit. And in the end, Miss Bhavani Joyce will check, are we the internal auditor superstar? So I, on the behalf of Chandigarh Branch and on my all executive members team, welcome all the guest speakers for today's webinar, sir. Once again, my heartiest, I am thankful to these 3 personalities for sparing valuable time for the profession, sir. I welcome all the learned speaker from this Chandigarh Branch, sir. And thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay updated. Ji. Over to moderator, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your insights. Now we are very fortunate enough to have the presence of C.A. Gyan Chandra Mishra, sir, Central Council Member, ICI, Vice Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board, ICAI, CPE Committee, Committee of Management Accounting, and also member of 24 other committees of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I request him to give his insights to the participants. Over to you, sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chalni. Highly respected Central Council Member and, of course, Chairman of IASB, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda ji, Chairman of the branch Anil Kakkar ji, respected speakers of today's session, Thakkar ji and Sarab sir, and of course, all the respected participants who are attending this very important topic related to the internal audit, the topic being global trends in internal audit and a look ahead. Friends, audit has always been very core to my audit practicing area as well as core to my heart. Internal audit being a very integral part as of now, because a lot of things which is happening in and around the industry and you can say businesses, those need to be checked and balanced factors for which internal audit is really necessary and essential. The topic being undertaken by the board and the speakers, I am very hopeful that the participants will get the insight of the internal audit, and I compliment the branch for taking such a wonderful initiative in the interest of the participants and members. Internal audit, if I say, basically it has lot of shapes, lot of forms and formats. The internal audit may be in shape of the concurrent audit, it may be in the shape of the internal audit, it may be shape of the forensic audit also nowadays, or specialized transaction audit. All these belong and are basic part of the internal audit itself. Internal audit means we have to go with each and every transaction audit. Now the shape has taken different shape. Friends, I am quite hopeful that this session is certainly going to benefit the members and of course realign the internal audit in the sense of Toto or the profession. Thank you, the branch, and of course to chairman of the board for giving this opportunity to interact with the members. Thanks a lot, and congratulations to all for such a wonderful initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insights. As cart cannot walk without two wheels, a committee cannot work without chairman and vice chairman of the committee. And you being an integral part, thank you for giving the insights to our participants. As great leaders don't set out to be leaders, they set out to make difference. It's never about the role, always about the goal. On this note, we are fortunate enough to have with us Central Council member, Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda sir. It's my proud privilege to introduce Nanda sir. He's an elected Central Council member of the ICAI. He was the chairman of Committee of Internal Audit, Women Member Empowerment Committee, Committee for Members in Industry, Professional Development Committee, Cooperative and NPO sectors, banking, insurance and pensions, financial markets and investors protection, CPE Committee, Public Relation Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India during his tenure. He was also chairman of Committee on Public Finance, Government Accounting, Research Committee, etc. He was a member of Quality Review Board set up by the Government of India and also a member of SEBI Advisory Committee on Primary Market and Mutual Fund for the year 2007 to 2010. He has represented ICAI on SEBI Committee on Disclosures and Accounting Standards. He was a convener of expert group constituted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India on Investor Protection, and also a member of South Asian Federation of Accountants Committee on Professional Accountants in Business. He was also Region Council member of the North Indian Regional Council of the ICAI for the 2 terms from 1998 to 2004, in which he was elected as a chairman for the year 2002-2003. During his tenure as a Region Council member, he was a committee member of Executive Committee, Career Council, Public Relations, Sports, Insurance Committee, etc. With this brief introduction, I welcome and request CA Charanjot Nanda sir to share his insights and keynote address with us. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Charmi. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have with me the co-chairman of this board, CA Gyanchand Mishra ji. I am also able to see the very revered, respected chairman of Chandigarh Branch, CA Anil Kakkad. My very respected speakers, CA Chetan Thakkar, CA Samit Saraf, Madam Bhavani Jios, people from the board, Secretary CA Aarti Bansal, Arun Agarwal, the moderator of the day, Madam Charmi Shah, and all who have come here to go home more enlightened. Just want to tell you, we have barely started the program, and close to 1,600 people have joined this program. 1,600 chartered accountants have logged in, and this speaks of the value and worth they accord to the programs of Internal Audit Standard Board. God has been kind that now I am chairing two boards, Internal Audit Standard Board and another board is DAB, Digital Assurance and Accounting Board, which takes care of forensics and information system audit. So, ladies and gentlemen, both the boards are keen to bring home technology for Moffisil chartered accountants, for proprietors, for senior citizens, because technology will change. Technology will bring an inevitable change, and our professional attributes and professional development shall move ahead on a larger perspective. I welcome you all to this virtual CPE global meeting on global trends in internal audit, a look ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, the first topic is to be taken by Mr. Chetan Thakkar, a very versatile, a very in the box, out of the box thinking of the topic. The name of the topic is Auditing Culture, making intangible, tangible and auditable. What a great topic it is. Let me very candidly tell you that culture captures the complexity of defining and then assessing intangible organization wise qualities or aspects that comprise human belief system at the first note, social norms and other psychological factors. See, this is the thought process which needs to now be audited, because audit has a deterrent effect. Audit brings improvisation. Audit brings indulgence of people so that a proper rating can be made. Now, you have to understand that culture is primarily created by number of drivers, which in turn impact the core beliefs and assumptions of an organization. Organizations are normally identified by their core beliefs and assumptions, and they are leadership. A leader is a man who moves in tandem with his co-sponsors, people who move with him. Strategy is the way of doing difficult things in an easy fashion. Corporate responsibility. Yes, as corporate citizen, you are responsible to certain of your acts and contribution to the public at large. People management, very, very important. Human management, people management is again an attribute which is not so common amongst the managers. Resource management, again similar to people management, but resources for highly technical people, how you manage them. And the process is very, very important. The process is very important because internal audit per se is a management function which determines that all processes that are involved into the internal audit are on the right track. There are no loopholes. There are no such inferences that the process may not work in the right tandem. So you have to understand that an audit of culture provides assurance of both design and operational effectiveness, which is again very important. Across the organization, it has to percolate throughout the organization, and which adds tangible value to leadership teams and boards. Yes, leadership can be measured, the board's efficiency can be measured, the board's integrity system involvement, each needs to be commented upon. The second topic which has to be taken by CS Samit Saraf is planning and internal audit. There is an old saying which says that people never plan to fail. They generally fail to plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is the legal requirement? The legal requirement says that the audit committee of the company or the board shall, in consultation with the chief internal auditor, he determine the scope, functioning, periodicity, and methodology for conducting the internal audit. How the internal audit has to be done, what are the integral features, and how the planning has to be done is well enshrined in the entire statute. Internal audit planning. An overall internal audit plan for the entire entity is prepared for a given period of time. Yes, and presented to the highest governing body responsible for internal audits, which essentially maybe an audit committee or the board. A number of specific internal audit plans are prepared for individual assignments to be undertaken. Whatever assignment needs to be done or undertaken, covering some part of the entity and presented to the chief internal auditor for his thought process, for his movement. Am I audible? Great,
Yes, sir.
great. What is the purpose of conducting internal audit planning? Very, very important. What are the key elements? Number one, it undertakes prior to the beginning of the plan period. It is not something which has to be done after the start of the audit, but planning has essentially to be done before the start of the audit. Second, it is comprehensive and therefore covers the entire entity, all important facets where commenting needs to be made. It is directional in nature and considers all the auditable units so that no one is left behind. It is normally prepared by the CIA, whom we call as the Chief Internal Auditor. And the outcome of this entire exercise is termed as overall internal audit plan, which is used for creating the future of the organization, which is used for designing the entire internal audit, which has to be done over the period of time. The third session is again a very important session taken by Madam Bhavani Jos. She speaks on, are you an internal audit superstar? Ladies and gentlemen, I have learned thing in life. Whatever you do as you are the king. Live like a king, forgive and forget. But our thought at times stops us. I am reminded of a couplet which says, कि इंसानी फितरत का हुनर देखें, इंसानी फितरत का हुनर देखें, जन्नत भी चाहते हैं और मरना भी नहीं चाहते. A man wants to achieve everything. He wants to go to heaven and yet not die. He wants to eat the cake and have it too. But still, people who are focused, people who are leaders, understand that they have to focus and achieve only certain objectives which will ultimately undermine the movement of contribution to the society at large. So are you an internal audit superstar? This is my question to all the internal audit professionals who are listening this. Yes, this session will speak about self-diagnostic and self-development tools and techniques for internal auditors so that they're able to differentiate themselves into indispensable internal audit members and leaders to create your value and space in an organization be indispensable. And in a word where the internal audit talent pool is increasingly versatile, both in terms of capabilities and geographical fluidity, the need of the ever increasing to invest personal development, because that development will ultimately usher an area where all processes, where all thought processes would be brought for the benefit of the board or to the audit committee. This session will include some number of things, but I'd like to put on some of them. The first is diagnosing where you are and set priorities for your individual path of excellence. If you don't achieve excellence, the answer question is how you be able to attribute that excellence to the organizations. So first of all, you have to be excellent. You have to be integral and smart enough. Second, understand your power to change the trajectory of your career as an internal auditor. You need to change yourself by days, by hours, because internal audit is ever changing. And third is understanding neuro-logistic programming, more commonly known as NLP, and communication techniques that help increase your impact as an internal auditor. Communication is very, very important, and therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that communication, if it is done through NLP, will have a lot of benefits. I will not take much of your time because I have three of the versatile speakers waiting to come out with their thought process, their technical skills to enlighten you and ensure that you go home leaving aside all the doubts which you would have on the subject. So over to Charmi to invite the first speaker of the day and ensure that all of us move in the direction of improvisation, in the direction of understanding things which would ultimately boost our career and ensure that the corporates or the clients who employ us are doubly benefited. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you have the true capacity to translate vision into reality. Your vision, unshakable determination, and persistent hard work will surely scale Institute to greater heights. Your vision will inspire and guide our CA colleagues to scale up new heights in the profession. Thank you, sir. Before starting our
Charmi.
session,
Thank you. Thank you.
So before starting our session, I would request the participants to post their queries in the box provided, which will be addressed by our learned speaker at the end of the session. So in order to succeed, organizations need a business strategy, which includes both what the organization is seeking to achieve, but also how it is going to achieve it. And that's called the culture. So this then needs to be consistently deployed, actively managed, and then owned. An audit of culture provides assurance of both design and operational effectiveness across the organization and adds tangible value to leadership teams and boards. It's time that professionals, regulators, and internal auditors recognize the importance of auditing culture and behavior. So, to throw upon more light upon auditing culture, making intangible, tangible, and auditable, we have with us CA Chetan Thakkar, sir. He is a fellow chartered accountant from ICAI from May 2000. He has done his strategic leadership program from IIM Ahmedabad in November 2019. He is an EMBA from Harvard Management Mentor USA in 2016. He is certified in risk management from ICAI, topped the exams in March 2011. He is a certified internal auditor from IIA, Florida, USA from November 2005. He is also a diploma in Information System Auditor, DISA from ICAI in September 2005. In his career spanning over last 25 years, he has been audited various large-size listed companies, MNCs, and banks. He is presently working with the Jindal Group in JSW Steel Limited as an Associate Vice President and Head Group Audit and Risk Management for Cement, Energy, and Mining Verticals. His last stint was his Prism Cement Limited, Rajan Raheja's group, as a Head Management Assurance and with Ambuja Cement Limited as a Head Corporate Audit. He is a Board of Governor at IIA India, Bombay Chapter, Chair of Advocacy, Vice Chair of Membership, Training and Webinar Committee, Professional Association and Speaker at IASB, IIA, ICI, BCS, Big Fours, etc. He is a subject matter expert in the areas of internal audit, internal control over financial reporting, management audit, system audit, risk management, and ERP implementation, etc. With this brief introduction, I welcome Chetan Thakkar, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Charmi, for such an enlightening introduction. And first of all, my gratitude to Nandaji, our friend and mentor in profession, our Vice Chair Gyanji, the Chairman of the Chandigarh Branch Anilji, the team at ISB. Thanks Charmi, Aarti, Arun, and other team members. Thank you so much for me being here to present my views on the topic, very less talked about in general. And comparatively, it's a new area of audit, which very few companies in India so far so good do it, and most of the MNC certainly do that. So, topic being in nature, I will try to make it as simple as possible. Just allow me a couple of minutes. I will quickly upload the presentation, please. Yeah, is the presentation? Yeah, Charmi, is the presentation
Yes,
visible?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Very much, Mr. Thakkar. Very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Great.
So,
great.
friends, let's set the tone. Just any organization, made big, small, MNC, large, every company needs to be successful. And to have that success, we need strategy. And strategy has two components. The first component, we say what the organization is seeking to achieve. So what exactly company want to achieve by having strategy? Are they want an growth, geographical growth? They want to go global. They want to have product development. What they want. But what is more important, have the strategy to be successful. What is important, how it's going to achieve it. That's all about culture. So how part is more important? See, planning anything, whatever you want to grow turnover-wise, product-wise, geographical-wise, it is easy to do strategy, but then how you are going to execute that strategy, how you are taking care of people, how you are getting along a different level of management, how you taking care of your stakeholder, and how you are going to be conduct that business to achieve that goal, which is very important. And we'll talk more about culture in slides to come. So friends, as we all know, we are in internal audit, and internal audit is essentially known as eyes and ears of the board. As a function, we report to the audit committee chair, and we all know that we have to be independent to the management. So we are the right people, a right judge to advise whether the tone at the top is adhered to all across the organization, whether culture is there all across the organization. Our learned CEO and President erstwhile, Mr. Richard Chamber of II Inc. US, he said in a very simplistic way what the culture is. He said culture is how we do the things around here. It means it is in a simple words, the way you conduct, the way you behave when nobody is listening to you. So that's the how part is very, very important that we are going to talk in a greater details. In simple word, auditing culture is like assessing control environment, assessing the control environment of the organization, which is the first component of COSO Internal Control Integrated Framework 2020-30. We as the internal auditor, our primary duty is to assess the controls, and this is the first step. We have to assess the overall control environment. So assessing the culture is part of the COSO very first component of COSO Internal Control 2020-13. So friends, let's discuss. See, there are some reality, there are some myths. Let's understand. Different people think differently about culture. Some people feel culture is everywhere. So yes, that's true. So that's not me. That's true. That's the reality. Culture is everyone's responsibility. It's not only the board, top management, your senior management, even people at bottom, all across, all stakeholders. It is the everybody's responsibility. It is not a single individual responsibility. It's for everyone. Whether culture is complex, yes, there is no universal definition. Friends, even you do Google it, culture is something which is not defined in a very uniform way. So it's quite complex, and it is, you have to look into the context. It touch the most of the intangible and tangibles. So friends, the topic itself we discussed, the culture is something, it is very intangible. So I will make an endeavor next 40 minutes to see that being in such a complex topic of culture, it is very easy to speak. People keep talk through a grapevine about culture. But when it comes to business, it comes to profession, it is very difficult to audit. But let me promise you, friends, next 40 minutes, we'll try and see that we'll make it very simple how to do culture audit and what is this all about. Although it is very complex, we'll try to make it as simple as possible for all of you who are being here today. Culture is subjective. Yes, friends, culture is subjective. Everybody has their own views about the culture. It's not an objective criteria and definition. Everybody has a different set of thoughts, so it is subjective. For them, some culture they think it is good, some feel it is bad. So it is how much it matters to them. Whether culture is contextual, yes. Culture cannot be speak in isolation. You have to, it is affected by the micro environment. It is the industry, where are you working, the country, where are you working it. So it is contextual. It cannot be talked in isolation. Whether culture is a risk culture? Yes, risk culture is the subcomponent of culture. So when we say risk culture, is one of the component. In my further slide, I will take through, there are various subcomponents of the culture. So risk culture is not an culture. Risk culture is one of the subset of the bigger, broader concept culture. Whether culture is not an integrity? No, integrity is a very critical in value. So it's one of the very important thing for a culture. You need to have a self-integrity as an individual, as a corporate. We need to have integrity, but it has a value. But it is distinct from culture. So integrity is again not culture. These are interchangeable. But I'm trying to make you clear what culture is all about. Whether culture is not in conduct. See, conduct is defined a financial service regulation. How business has to do. What are the things to be done? How the conduct of business, how the individual conduct in the office environment, corporate environment. So it is it is a part of culture, but it is not culture. So there is a difference between, I will take you through the slides. There is a difference between code of conduct and there is a code of culture. These are absolutely two different things. However, again, it is interchangeable. Next thing, culture is not static. Yes, friends, let me tell you, what culture today may not be tomorrow, was not be there yesterday. So it is very evolving subject which the organization is never set for the entire business life cycle. So it is a static. So you have to make it positive, make it opportunistic all across all the stakeholder as an opportunity and optimistic for the same. So friends, I thought of just quickly take you through the different reality myths about the culture. Let's go ahead. Friends, culture is so important. If there is the culture is toxic, if culture is not good, if culture is a bad, the very famous American management guru we all know, Mr. Peter Drucker, he said, culture is strategy for breakfast. Friends, what does it mean? It means your strategy may be excellent. It was a fantastic strategy. Your corporate has it. Your board has a fantastic strategy. But if your culture is toxic, if culture is bad, then your strategy is taken as a breakfast. So it kill away the best of the strategies. What may you have it if you have a bad culture? So it is essentially very, very important to have a right culture, a good culture to make. We discussed on the very first slide, it is very good to have a good strategy, but it is essentially most important to have a very good culture to make it happen, to make organizations successful. So if culture of organization is toxic, if it is a bad, it erodes effectiveness all other control layers. Yes, friends, if you have best of the controls, if you have best of the strategy, you have best of the resources, but if the culture is not good, I will take you through in my future slides the largest of largest. I'm not talking about billions, billions, and trillions. The trillions of losses has happened. The largest of large corporates, not only in India, globally, because these companies have to wind up just because of the toxic culture. So, friends, please understand. Doing our routine process audit, may it be fixed asset, maybe inventory, bill receivable, finance audit. This is essentially important. But to do those audits to give comfort to the board, to the top management. But I think background some voice is coming. I request others to.
Please do stand at your code while you still have the connectivity before we close doors.
I think there is some technical issue. Just allow me 1 minute. Is it screen visible too? Visible, Chami?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm audible. I think there was some technical issue for a few seconds. Yeah, so friends, I was talking about how bad culture, toxic culture, ruined down the largest of large corporate, and we will see few examples. Friends, I'm sure we all are in the profession. We know the global lapses, the lot of large to very large companies like Enron, World.com, Volkswagen, Tesco, Toshiba, FIFA. I will take you through some numbers so you will understand the gravity of the losses which this company had done because of the wrong practice of culture. Friends, let's take through the Enron. The shareholder lost $74 billion. So it's in Indian rupees, this is close to 5.6 trillion, 5,60,000 crore loss has happened to shareholder. This is the one of the so far so good, one of the said to be a very bad example, a case study because of the window dressing. We talked about the toxic culture. The second most, again, a very popular case study is a World.com. They have shown 11 billion USD inflated asset, window dressing. So not a good financial disclosure. Their market value has dropped from 180 billion. Friends, you heard it right. Their market value has dropped from 180 billion to 350 million only. You can see the entire company, which was the world leader, has come down from 180 billion to 350 million only. So this is the impact. If your company is not having a good culture, if company is not doing a good conduct, right? If your company is not following the right ethics, right business practices, how this a bigger, there is no good example than other than world.com, where their shareholder lost and the market value lost billions and trillions of rupees. You all know Volkswagen cases, how they manipulated a diesel car. What has happened? They have to face 18 billion suits, $18 billion suits in US. We all know Satyam, how this is a classic Indian example, failure again, the greed of the top management. Then there is a cultivation by the auditors, statutory auditor, internal auditors. They have been removed from Nifty. How the share price had come down from $29 to just $1.8. So this is the case of India also. There are many more cases. Interest of time, I'm not getting into all the cases. But friends, understand this such a large company like Enron, World.com, Satyam has collapsed with no time. The larger of larger, the largest firm, which is, I'm sure everybody knows Arthur Anderson. Earlier it is known as Big Five. Now we call it as Big Four. Friend, let me tell you, Arthur Anderson was the number one firm globally, which has a combined net worth of Pricewaterhouse, KPMG, EY, and Deloitte. That firm was such a big firm. That firm also got collapsed because they have association with these bad governed companies. Yes, friend, you heard it right. Arthur Anderson, the largest of large. Today's the name of the Arthur Anderson is completely vanished. The people who qualified before me, maybe during 2000, they knows about Arthur Anderson. Somebody who qualified last 20 years may not be knowing what is Arthur Anderson. They know only Big Four. Earlier, it is known as Big Five, and the Arthur Anderson was number one and the top above in terms of customer revenue presence. They were the biggest global custody firm in globally, but they vanished all bad because they joined hand with the bad governed companies, the companies who had governed badly. So friends, see the implication, how bad culture or toxic culture take your company through that. So understand the essence and importance of a good governance. Friends, just we'll take it further. So what is happening when you realize there is a bad culture, when you realize there's a toxic culture? See, these are your basically red flags. I will take you through further examples in my further slides. The talk is not work. Management speaks something else. In front of media, in front of shareholder meeting, they talk. We are very compliance governed company. We have zero non-compliance. We have very high regard to compliance. But what has happened inside the room? They don't comply. They don't do all the non-compliance. They manage those penalties. They manage their cases. They manage the people at different departments. So talk is not being walked. This gives a red signal. Your company is not governed good. Blaming others. There is a culture of blaming others. There is a defensive culture. People don't take ownership. Management doesn't take ownership. If something goes wrong, so there is no ownership. There is always blame game. So there is a not really good culture. There is an unethical environment. There is illegal behavior is going on within and outside the company. People who deal at the top and the people are down. The behavior of the people are not ethical. So again, a good example of bad culture. Poor communication. There is no transparency of communication. What is happening in the at top? Only the few people, CFO, CEO, CMO, only few people, the important things going on within a company, very few people at the top knowing about. So there is no communication, even at the later stage, what is going around. So absolutely there is a disconnect between top management and people at middle and at the low level. So I think that is again a not good cultural sign. Your company is not transparent with you. They doesn't want to communicate what is happening around. They don't want to board you along with them. So these are the signs where culture is not really good governed. The different standards for the different people. We all realize we work for a firm. We work for the small and large corporates. We realize we have seen this in many companies, many firms. There are different standards. The top people, the owners of the firm, or the owners, promoters of the large corporate, and the people at the helm of the high affair of the corporates, they have a different set of standards, maybe for promotion, maybe for giving a promotion, maybe giving a good portfolio, maybe rewarding, maybe performance incentive, what may it may be. So they behave differently for different people. So there is not a good set of across based on your performance, rather it is based on the favoritism. So this is again a not good sign of a good culture. Friends, again we take through few more red flags to understand you what. See, unless you understand what is wrong, you will not able to monitor and you will not able to set it right. So I'm taking you a few more. A lack of financial discipline. We've seen those corporate examples, how window dressing happened in world.com. Employees constantly fear being fired. So there is always constant fear. The employee may get fired. Knowledge sharing among employees absolutely not there. People don't want to share anything. Only the top and few people, concentrated people, know what's happening around. So there, as I already told you, there is a perceived disconnect between what is being told in front of public and the actions are not concise with your words. So you talk something else, you walk something else. So talk is not being walked. Risk management, internal control, absolutely regarded as inconvenience. They have no value. Maybe a just checkbox approach. So these are again signs of toxic culture. Lack of prompt follow-up, failure to escalate issues. So these are things not really appreciable as a good culture. So friends, understand what is our role. So friends, understand what is our role as the internal auditors. So importantly, our role is to find out what are the root causes we discussed. Right now, we discussed last 2 slides. What are the red flags? What are the root causes? So we have to help the management to set it right, good culture. That's our primary responsibility because we are the subject matter experts. And we have to share with them the best practices your corporate, your firm can follow. Assessing the governance structure, we can help them. What is the role of the board? What is the role of the key managerial like CFO, CEOs? They have to follow. What is the roles and responsibility to setting a good culture and good conduct? Helping them to strategize how to communicate this thing, how to have the different set of policy, code of conduct, code of ethics, different policies on POSH, how transparently you can share those strategy which could be shared with the across the organization. So people will be on the same page where management want to head towards. If you want to win, you have to get everybody along, right? Management cannot afford to go a single-handed without taking support from people across the board. May it be inside and maybe from people from outside. And then you have to, especially as an internal auditor, there are some sensitive areas where you need to vouch for those culture. How incentive has been paid out? Is there any favoritism? Is it the right methodology adopted for paying out the incentive? Is it the right criteria? Is it the hiring is not favoritism or taking the relative or somebody who is not capable, or even the good people are not being hired? The people with the less efficiency, less skill have been hired. So this is again a few examples how you set those culture right. Is the disciplinary action taken if somebody has done a fraud? Is the escalation protocols are strong? Is it whistleblower? If somebody whistleblow it, how management is taking care, making his not to disclose his name, giving cover to him. Rather, his name should not be disclosed across. So otherwise, people will not dare to whistleblow any wrongdoing happening in the company or any forensic thing they observe in the company. So people will observe that culture, how your company is taking care of people who genuinely stand up and we speak about any wrongdoing happening in the company. So that is very important basically, and analyzing those information. So friends, we play a very, very important role to setting the right practice, helping creating the structure, governance structure, helping in designing and communicating the strategy, objective, different policy procedure we discussed. So we play a very important role. So now let's friend, we talk all this about what is culture, what is all about, what is not culture, what are the red flags, what is a bad culture. Now friends, let's talk about how now you all we discussed culture is again a very difficult set of audit. It is not doing a simple audit where you do arithmetic calculation, do some valuation for inventory, fixes it. So this is very intangible. Let's see how there are 3 different approach you can do audit culture. The first approach, we do assessment of cultural frameworks. So in the first in the first methodology, we just do a framework audit. We see how companies documented their policy. Is basically it is a tone at the top. How policy is nothing but the tone at top, which cascaded down to the across organization. Whether company has all the important policies in place, which is required by company's law, example, which is required by their own companies. Whether company has a code of conduct, whether company has a code of ethics, whether it has all the clauses, required clauses. It talks about whether what gift you should take it, what gift you should not take it, what conduct you should do it, what conduct you should behave during the office hours, even after office hours. How would you treat the women? We talked about even POSH, that is sexual harassment, prevention over social harassment. How it is serious about policy on ERM, how serious, whether company has a whistleblower policy, how it has been managed, how those complaints have been taken care. So basically, if a company has all these important critical businesses, whether they have a good policy, good code of conduct, whether they have good internal control framework, whether they have a good risk management framework, whistleblower policy, if you find all these frameworks are really not on the papers, just on the papers document, or not on just on the files, whether these policies are really being communicated, whether awareness is really happening all across organization, and whether do follow it and practice it, and time in again, whether management take efforts to see that the assent of the framework reach to each employee, and whether they take in the right spirit to have a right culture and good government company. So this is all about framework, cultural framework work. Let's talk about cultural assessment. Here, friends, here there is a different methodology. We do a survey, or there be face-to-face interviews, or there is a questionnaire. You have a questionnaire distributed to the different level of people, a different stakeholder. You can go for survey. You can do a face-to-face interview. You want to focus on certain category of people, maybe legal, compliance, board member, top management, certain. So you focus, you define the strategy, how you would like to do a culture admin. And I think the great place to work surveys also help you to, I think that is the survey where, employee get the opportunity to speak up with all its boldness. So this is again one way to do a cultural assessment audit. The last methodology as a strategy, we as an auditor, you integrate cultural audit in every audit. So cultural audit, evaluation of the soft control in each hardcore processes. So any audit you do, whether you do a fixed asset, inventory, debtors audit, finance audit, treasury audit, any sort of marketing audit. So you look at the soft control, how those processes are being managed with the soft control. I will take through my future slides. What are those soft control? There is again to strategy, how to address this. We'll talk in the another 2 minutes. Root cause analysis in each process to understand what are the causes or root causes which makes or threat to the good culture, a good governed company. So you integrate along with your normal audit cycle processes. One, you assess through surveys, face-to-face interviews, questionnaires, and one, you assess. So I suggest if you start doing audit very first time, it is good idea to do a framework audit first. In a second phase, it is good to do assessment through these surveys face-to-face. And once your organization matured, once they accept this cultural audit with the value of observation we deliver to them, then it is a good idea to make that as a habit integrate that in your day-to-day process audit. So these are the 3 strategy one can go for audit, cultural audit. So friends, as I told you, the one way you do a full-fledged audit, assessment, framework, or integrate, and there is other way which we call bit-size audit. You don't have to necessarily do entire framework audit, or you don't do entire assessment across organization. You may do a risk culture audit. You see how serious management is about risk taking, control activities, what is the risk appetite, or you may do a risk assessment of culture through how organization is serious about the cyber culture, whether employees are concerned with the security, is there any enough awareness, is the training given, awareness program is happening, maybe a security or a password. So how serious your corporate is about cyber culture. You can do that. you can do that subset of culture audit about cyber. You may do a audit culture, say about fraud, whether employee theft, whether it is tolerated or accepted. Do employee understand that intellectual property belongs to organization, not with them? So how serious, how that culture of fraud, anti-fraud, I will say rather, is being developed and awareness is propagated to all. Okay, with it, there is a zero fraud acceptance policy example. So it is not acceptable. Maybe so it is all about the intention and integrity of employees all across the levels. So how serious management is about fraud, non-tolerances. So that you can do the audit through this fraud culture audit. You can do safety culture. How serious you track workplace injuries, hazardous waste, your pollution, your water wastages, a kind of damage your industry, it all making, how serious you are it. It is not only the on the papers and the returns you file to the authorities, whether you follow in a very true sense, because human capital itself is the topmost, most valuable asset. How serious company, a kind of tool and technique management providing to ensure that all their employees who are mostly on the plant forefront, on the source of the plant activity, how they are taking care on their safety fronts, whether they are communicated time and again, they have been trained. So that gives you a feeling about how serious, like my previous company, my current company has a zero harm safety. So there is not acceptable. They monitor it very rigorously, near miss or any fraternity happening very minutely. It has been taken very, very seriously. People who are at the top, people who are responsible, is not being acceptable this behavior. So there is a zero harm policy on safety. So that sets the standard how serious your company is on this safety front. Now come to friends, compliance culture. Whether it's only it is a checkbox. Are you really checkbox, or are you do something, you talk something, you don't walk on that, you just track delays, you really track non-compliance? How serious are you being part and partner with the government? How serious you are about and managing it very rightfully about your compliance? That gives you feeling as an auditor how good governed compliance culture in that company which is under review by you. And lastly, most important, conduct culture. Is management held accountable for the personal actions? Is the management take action if somebody, even you are a CFO or you are a US CEO, even the board found out, or if whistleblower happen, are the top management? We have seen many cases. We are reading day in day out all the top newspapers. You are saying some CEOs had done from recently. I don't want to name out being in this professional forum, but we all know those are in public domain. So good government company, even your CEO is being involved. I've seen many companies recently, a month before, entire board has been dissolved because the appointment of the CFO has been done, which is not in terms of these appointments supposed to be done. Entire board, I don't want to name that company. It is one of the large finance public listed company on BSE NSE. So entire board has been dissolved because the appointment of CFO was not done in the normal course of business, and which was not happened with good governance. That's the reason entire board has resigned. And there are many, many more cases. I don't want to discuss those names, but our professional friends are so whether that company has a culture and have that boldness, whether your company has that boldness to take this bold step and set these people and set a good example and make the aware all across. Okay, any bad culture on conduct, any bad culture, toxic culture on compliance, fraud, safety, cyber risk is not acceptable. I'm sure those companies may not be stoppable, and they will, if you have such a robust culture in terms of risk, a good secured IT, because IT, without IT, no company can grow. I think it is acceptable for as you grow, as you go big, geographically, productly, or a value wise, you have to follow IT. Zero fraud, zero harm, absolutely compliant company. If your company follow this good cultural components, your company is bound to grow, and your company is going to be a most successful company in time to come. So friends, this is how we talk a three different approach. Either you do a framework audit to start so you have to start a small. This area is not that easy. everybody to do the audit of culture is not that easy. I'm trying to tell you time and again. But let's start small. Whether you assess whether your company has a framework, then you do a surveys, you do a lot of assessment, then you integrate that into your normal business process. So you can grow gradually phase wise. If you don't have so much bandwidth and expertise, then my second strategy, go a bit-size audit we discuss in a greater length. So friends, in the interest of time, I'm going ahead. So friends, I talked to about you. There are two set of to do a culture audit. There are two things. Our topic we discuss, the culture itself is intangible. So I'm trying to demonstrate. I'm trying to take a view that we are trying to make this culture which is intangible by per se. We try to review some tangible part of that, and we as auditor try to make that as auditable. Otherwise, it is very difficult to audit culture. So friends, what are the hard control? When you do assessment for a culture, what are the hard control you have to look into? Whether company has the internal controls, whether they have RCM, whether they have a proper followed globally or our issue defined COSO model, or whether they have properly followed internal controls all across the important critical business activity, whether company has a proper ERM, whether they do a proper risk assessment, whether that is risk is being aware, what is the risk appetite, whether company follows a proper risk management process, whether company has a ERM committees, whether the top risks have been discussed, whether mitigation different strategy have been discussed, and managing. So we never wanted internal auditor to discourage company not to take risk. We want company to take a risk. If company has to grow rightfully with the good governed causes, take a risk. So if you don't take a risk, your company will not grow. But grow with right conduct, with right integrity. You look at rules and procedure we discuss in the framework audit strategy. You look whether company has a proper segregation of duty, whether there is a delegation of duty, whether proper segregation happens, there is no conflicting interest, whether there is no scope for forensic things to happen in the absence of segregation duty. You please vouch for these processes, so you will get to this are hard term. We discuss code of ethics, whistleblower policy, code of conduct. So these are some of the hard control. You can do vouch for that, and you can come to some valuable conclusion. You can give your assurance reasonably about the culture you being audited for that entity or for the firm. So friends, let's quickly look at what are the soft control. These are difficult part of control. You have to vouch it. But unless I discuss with you, unless I talked about you will never know what are the things needs to be seen from a soft control perspective. Friends, very simple thing. Enforcement. As desired behavior is rewarded. If somebody is good, somebody spoke as a whistleblower, whether he is being rewarded, whether undesirable behavior, whether it has been sanctioned, is some wrong employee, somebody doing wrong thing, somebody is taking bribe, somebody is doing fraud with the third party vendors, or with the, giving bribe to the vendors, giving bribes to the customers. Is it acceptable sanction? So you have to see those soft control. Whether people are being held accountable. Are others in the organization for a misconduct, are they being penalized? Do people feel comfortable voicing their opinion, raising issues and discussing dilemmas? See how serious and whether this culture is there in your company. Are people in bold enough? Are they getting that support from the top? This talks about the cultural driver. Is it being transparent? Are the people behavior are visible? Are rules, procedure, and desired behavior is really clear? Is it communicated? Because most of the time, see, most of the events for incentive, performance balance, performance pay, variable pay, most of the time people are not even clearly communicated how they have been evaluated on performance. Somebody get very poor pay incentive, somebody get very high. Unless those criteria are not being properly documented, rules are framed, procedures are being communicated all across the organization who are concerned. So whether the transparency and clarity is there, otherwise we are keeping that thing under mask. We are not opening up transparently. So again, this is set a toxic culture. People across the organization may not be happy, contented, and they are always under the pressure and under fire. What will happen to him? whether he has been paid right, whether he has been treated properly. Role modeling. Do managers set a good example? Do we have practice to recognize a good performance? Whether company has that culture? Do company has a commitment? Do employee feel motivated, engaged to follow the rules? Achievability. This is very important. Whether the targets given to each employee is a different level, may it be a marketing targets, may it be a production target, may it be quality, may it be an accounting target. It has to be realistic. It should not something to achieve, because one of the component of fraud is the pressure. If your target is not achievable, not realistic, I think then people will tend to do something wrong, and then you are getting because of your impracticable targets, your unrealistic targets, to give it to your top people, your middle people, at the people at the middle. I think then entire people will start getting into wrongdoing, wrong things to show the good number. Window dressing will happen. A lot of frauds will happen. There will be collusion with the vendors. There will be collusion with the customers. The collusion will be regulators. So please see that whether the targets being given are really achievable, implementable, and workable, and should be realistic. Otherwise, we as a management, company as a management is setting suo moto bad culture. So friends, these are the soft controls you can vouch. We spoke about hard controls. We spoke about this. I think by doing this, to start with, so friends, these are the parting thought. Interest of time, I am not getting into data details because subject is like we can speak for hours together. So friends, before I hand over to Chami, let's share quickly about parting thoughts. Let's understand company's appetite for auditing culture. See, first of all, you have to buying. To my career of 25 years, I am into internal audit for last more than 25 years. I have seen very few companies and a lot of good, barring few MNCs, very few companies do auditing culture audit as a part of that annual report, or maybe a special request by the board or top management. So it is essentially our duty. We have to go back as an internal auditor to your CFO, CEO, or MD, or you go to the board and request them you want to carry out auditing culture. So understand whether company has that appetite, whether your top management is serious, whether they want to know the cultural audit to be done by a subject matter expert like us. So please do that sanitization first. Identify the right approach. Friends, we discussed 3 different approaches. We talked about what are the soft control, hard control, different strategy. We talked about a kind of subcomponent, risk culture, compliance culture, safety culture. There are different methodology I shared with you. So you start a small way. You don't have to start in the bigger way, because this is a new area, as a non-traditional area we are getting into, and this is very sensitive area as well. We have to go very slow. We have to start a small way, and communicate value to your stakeholders, importantly your board, the top management. Then only they will allow you to do this audit, because this audit is right now, see, foreign company, American and US company, most of the financial services company, friends, let me tell you, auditing culture audit is mandatory there. India, it is not mandatory. But we have seen, because if your company is not good governed, if the culture is not good, it is toxic. How big companies, even in India, many companies you have seen PNB, you have seen ILFS, you have seen Satyam. There are n number of examples, if I can speak, if I have given a time. And foreign companies we spoke, WorldCom, Volkswagen, many more. So how, if your culture is not good, you have to go back to your management, because anyway, we are starting next year now. I am sure we as an internal auditor, most of us, right now in a planning stage. Friends, please take auditing culture is one of the audit area. I am telling you, this audit results will surprise your management, will surprise your board. I think even the kind of sharing I done with a very simple way, even to go with this material and go with this strategy. I'm telling you, you do a 20 audits, maybe fixed asset, billing, marketing, production, and you do one auditing culture in entire year. Take the mandate from your corporate or your firm and just see how it will be perceived value by your management, and top of above, you will be valued on a very high regards. So let's get everyone on board buying this and start small. And finally, there is no one size fits all, friends. Whatever I discussed, because it cannot be applied objectively. It is a subjective. I've given many strategies to you. Let's apply what best suits you. I don't know where your maturity of your firm, maturity of your company geographical expansion, maturity, and the kind of large or small company you are into. So it is differ based on different products, service, scale, geographical, etc. So friends, I want to acknowledge I have gone through II US practice guide. I took support from my India. I had taken input from my chief advisor. I gone through the writers from KPMG, Grant Thornton. I gone through to deliver the session you today. I gone through Harvard Business Review, specifically which these are all articles I have gone through to see how best I could able to share with you in a very simplistic way how to do auditing culture, the area which is very non-conventional, something new. But I'm sure the 40 minutes I delivered and to you guys would help to all of you. So thank you so much once again to Nandaji and ISB for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this topic. Thank you so much. Now over to Charmi, please.
Thank you, sir. Please accept our vehement protestation of gratitude. And feeling gratitude and not expressing is like wrapping a gift and not giving it. So please accept our heartfelt gratitude for enthralling us through your words of wisdom on the topic. I request you to stay back for answering the queries of our participants. But right now, moving on to our next session. As it is said that the journey of 1,000 league begins with a single step, and so our next address is on covering planning an internal audit by an SME by CA Sambit Subhash Saraf, sir. He is a fellow member of ICA and a holder of Advanced Diploma in Management Accountancy from CIMA London. Over 8 years of post-qualification experience in the field of internal audits and risk advisory. He is a partner in two well-known CA firms, that is Virtain and Pandit LLP and Saraf Associates, handling the practice of internal audit and risk assurance for mid-size and large corporation pan-India, which includes listed company, government corporation, as well as MNCs. He is a core group member of BCS since past 6 years, currently part of the seminar and membership committee 2021-22. Is a contributor to the Illustrates BCS reference annual publication on subject of auditing from last 4 years. Is a part of board of directors of Global Chamber of Saraswat Enterprise, a Section 8 company popularly known as Saraswat Chamber of Commerce. With this brief introduction, I request Sambit sir to take over the session.
Thank you, Charmi. I'll just share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A very good evening to my fellow panelists, members attending the session, ladies and gentlemen. I'd first like to thank Nandaji and the team at IASB ICAI for the opportunity to present at today's platform, and that too with a topic that is very critical for any internal audit engagement that we perform as chartered accountants. Thank you also to the team of Chandigarh Branch of NIRC ICAI for hosting me as a panelist on your forum today. Chetan sir has delivered an enlightening session on audit culture and has set the tone for today's program. Similarly, I hope to add some value from my end over the next 45 to 50 minutes that have been allotted to me. My topic today is planning an internal audit for SMEs or emerging corporates. Internal audit in today's world has moved from being a traditional compliance activity to now having a risk-based audit approach. The large corporates typically have their risk registers, the reporting to ACB levels, the internal audit charters, in addition to established processes and systems. But when it comes to emerging corporate clients, the internal auditor may have to rejig or reshuffle his or her audit approach and methodology. There may be a need to tweak certain items of scope to meet the demands of the client in order to stay relevant in the engagement. Risk assessment has become a very critical aspect while planning an internal audit in today's ever-changing times we've seen in the last 2 years, especially in situations that are beyond the promoter's control. The SME or the emerging corporate may fail to mitigate the risk and stands to lose on various grounds. Us internal auditors also play a vital role in ensuring that the client rides the tide by envisaging the future risks and can communicate better by virtue of being the to-go person for the SME promoters. All of the above can only be achieved if the various stages of the internal audit engagement are planned efficiently, and that is what we'll be going in deep dive today. Briefly, the index of contents that we'll be covering today are what are the key features and the critical focus areas of the emerging corporates. Next, we'll be seeing the key points for the SIA 220 and SIA 310. Next, we'll be seeing the features of the internal audit charter. Next, what are the expectations from us internal auditors of the clients? Diving next to the core subject of the day is process-based approach, which includes planning and the various steps that are included in planning the internal audit engagement. From my experience per se, what are the challenges that are faced by internal auditors? And lastly, where is the scope for value addition from our side? If we have to see the key features and the critical focus areas, mostly the SMEs or the emerging corporates are promoter driven, where power is concentrated within a small group of individuals, many a times family owned as well. Each process, be it finance, be it sales, be it purchases, are headed by a certain member of the board, and there lies the overall control. There are limited segments of revenue and business in such companies, hence manageable business activities to say so. At the same time, there are limited internal controls and there is a possibility of overriding by management, and there where our role becomes very important. Such companies are also open to outsourcing of various functions, internal audit being one of those functions. Now, where are the critical focus areas that we need to be careful of? Human resources, we need to look at how retention is done, how the skill sets are managed here, how is the pay planned and taken forward, what are the employee benefits that are being offered by the clients. When it comes to regulatory compliances, how are the taxes managed? Are they efficiently done? In today's era of more increased filings, corporate regulatory filings that are coming in, how is the client coping? Can we provide some support from our end on that front? The newer regulations are coming day to day from various government authorities. When it comes to financial matters, there may be a capital constraint of sorts. How is that being managed? There may be cash flow issues in the working capital management. Again, how is the company focusing on that, where our role can be important? Debtors management, mainly where there are a lot of overdue debtors which are crossing the credit limit, then there may be a negative adverse impact on the working capital management. Again, that needs to be looked at. When it comes to technology, there may be a certain backstep from the client side where IT infrastructure might not be adequate. In many cases, software licensing, which is very important, the softwares that we use, are they crack versions, is something that we need to check. Are they original versions? We need to check and advise accordingly. Use of tools like Excel tools, many plugin softwares that are available. Is the company taking benefit to make its working more efficient? Is that being done? AI, ML tools are also available. If that is within the ambit, if the company can deploy the same, are they knowing firstly which such tools are available in the market and are they using it? We can provide some value add on that front as well. When it comes to strategy, focus areas for us could be pointing out the product mix, the demographic mix of the products, the customers, where they lie across the country, across the globe. We can also point out certain concentration risk for our clients in this case. Who are the peers? What are they doing? Are we benchmarking to that level? What is our customer base? Are we in a redundant product? Do we need to move towards a newer product to stay relevant? Lastly, benchmarking industry standards. Reading industry reports that apply to the sector that you're auditing, or there may be sectoral ups and downs which we can point out to our clients. Are we doing so? Is the client aware? This is the scope for us to point out in part of our internal audit engagements. When it comes to SIA 220 and 310, firstly, 220 is conducting overall internal audit planning, and SIA 310 is planning the internal audit assignment. Mainly, there are two levels of planning. The first one being overall annual internal audit plan, which is prepared at the start of the year and is presented to the board or the audit committee for approval, as the case may be. And the second point is where certain departmental audit plans say HR audit or certain finance audit or inventory, certain departments are outsourced to external firms. And then we are presenting our findings to the chief audit executive. This happens more so when the internal audit function is in-house. Now, what are the essential documentation that needs to be ensured while planning the internal audit? When we start off, when we are planning, the information needs to be gathered about the business, its operations, what the product is, what the client mix is, the systems, processes that exist today. Are there any loopholes, or has various other companies in the sector, are they further down the line and we are still one step back? We need to check that, do a public domain audit of the sector and of the company. Any past issues applicable to the sector or the company, we can find out the same from our research. And if there is any recent impact, which is an adverse impact maybe to the sector, we need to be knowing the same at the time of planning itself. Next, an audit universe and a summary of the auditable units. Now, when we say audit universe, basically it is about the core functions and the support functions. If we take an example of manufacturing companies, production, purchases, sales, inventory could be called core functions. When you see support, it may be IT, finance, HR, or they may be support functions. This together constitutes the audit universe. If this is not documented, I said at the start of the audit, you may prepare such an audit universe and document the same for your working papers. Summary of meetings and communications held with key stakeholders. This is where we discuss with the C-suite level, with the HODs, with the process owners, get their inputs at the time of planning. This will help us make a more relevant scope and also help us make a better program, a better audit program, which can be implemented with a better output for the client per se, rather than following a checklist, which is a very draft checklist. One size does not fit all. Hence, having such meetings, having such walkthroughs is absolutely important. Risk assessment documentation, again, if there is an RCM in place, we may procure the same. This may be used for testing. So better to make an inquiry about the same. Summary of available resources. If you're, for example, doing an HR audit, is there someone in your team who has knowledge of labor acts or how payroll works? It's very important to have these aspects. A pure financial audit is not an internal audit. You have to look at the operational side of things. And here is where you make a team, which is like an all-star team. You should have someone ideally in your team who can deep dive into certain areas, which touches the entire scope, which will help you cover the audit in a better way. Lastly, the overall internal audit plan, which is duly approved by the board or the audit committee, you need to have it documented on paper prior to you commencing the quarterly or the monthly audits or the concurrent audits, as the case may be. Next, we look at what is a charter. What is an internal audit charter? It's a formal document approved by the board of directors and agreed by the management. This particular charter exists mainly when the internal audit function is managed in-house. That means there is a chief audit executive who is the catalyst, basically, who is the common point between us if an external audit firm is taken for some outsourcing. He is the common catalyst who will coordinate on our behalf with the board as well and the audit committee here. The charter must define four main pillars. What is the internal audit's purpose within the organization? The internal audit's authority within the organization. What is our responsibility and our position within the organization? Such charter also provides a blueprint to the organization and the stakeholders as to how internal audit plans to operate. So there is clarity. You will receive lesser obstacles, across board, across auditable units, as and when you proceed during the year. The charter also establishes reporting lines to or for the chief audit executive, who in turn reports functionally to the audit chairman and administratively to the management. So it's a very important role that the chief audit executive plays in any internal audit engagement. The charter also specifies the responsibilities of the internal auditor, maybe to reporting. It may be about conflict of interest, risk assessment, access to what data, access to which premises. It's very clearly documented in any internal audit charter. Next, the charter also lays down the internal audit plan for the year, how it is to be submitted to the audit committee, how it is to be implemented. If you find any report, material deviations or any very critical high risks, how are you supposed to be reporting the same? Is there a flash reporting that needs to be done? That flowchart is very clearly documented in the internal audit charter. Coming to the flip side, where the audit function is not in-house, it's outsourced to an external firm, the internal audit charter will be replaced by something called an engagement letter. So for those on today's seminar who are firms, basically who are professional firms, and auditing as internal auditors as external firms, you may have seen the engagement letter. The fundamental is the same. It's an IAC is also the engagement letter. Moving forward, from my experience, what are the expectations from the internal auditors that the companies have? Very important to note this as you plan the audit. The audit committee will also always require a crisp reporting and assurance on effectiveness of 100% controls. Basically, they have less time. Many a times from experience, they just want to know if things are in order, what are the critical issues, and are they being taken care of. An executive summary of the audits that we have done during the quarter or during the half year, as the frequency is. They would like to know the summary of these observations, how they are tackled, are they closed, are they open, and what is the management or the HOD wanting to say to such observations. Also, reporting high risk issues has to happen at this level, and 100% compliance to statutory compliances is something that all the audit committees that I've reported on, they are stressing their importance on the 100% compliance. When it comes to the C-suite level, they are looking for addition, basically new findings with audit. It should not be a redundant audit. If I am doing a production audit in say Q1 of this year, and if I take it up in the subsequent financial year, but I'm finding repeat observations, then there is some problem in the root cause analysis that we may have done, which are not tackled in the previous audit, and which is why they are repeat observations again next year. So there is no value addition per se. So from our side, demonstrating that if you've identified a problem, identify the root cause and solving it so that it is not seen in the subsequent audit is termed as value addition, and again, much importance to the C-suite level. Coming to cost control measures, if you are saving certain money and suggesting cost optimization measures, that is again of tangible importance to the C-suite level, which is appreciated. Many a times the observations that you bring out map to the audit fees that are paid to us. Again, it's a practical thing, and this is a realistic thing as well. So you need to bring out more and more value added, or at least try to bring out more value additions or observations which have a financial impact tag to it. When you come to the process owner level, working in the auditable unit, which may be HR, finance, production, purchase, at this level, their expectations are basically to understand the constraints that they are facing as and when they take their day-to-day activities. And if at all any issues are found, they would probably request you to avoid reporting those issues to the higher ups that we may addressed. So they will like to close it at that level itself. Again, it's a judgment of the internal auditor how they want to follow the reporting structure, whether they want to nip it in the bud or whether they want to take it to the higher level so it is addressed and the root cause also is analyzed and the management knows about it. So these are generic expectations from the internal auditor. Before we dive into our main topic for the day, I would like to throw some light on the audit process that we follow. There are 4 pillars basically. First one being planning, which is today's topic. Next is fieldwork, reporting, and then follow-up. Now in the planning stage, like we've seen in the previous slides, we need to define the objective of the audit and methodology. How do we do that? Send out an email or a letter which notifies the auditee about the audit that is going to take place. At the end of the audit firm, you may start gathering background information which is available in public domain, annual reports, etc. Identify the risks. Here you can procure the RCM and know what you're looking at. If it's already documented, well and good. With the help of this, you may create the audit program, which may be deployed at the time of fieldwork. Before you begin the fieldwork, call for the entrance meeting. Now, in this opening meeting, you may discuss, the planned audit that's going to take place. You may also take inputs from the stakeholders, that is from the auditable unit, which may have the HODs or the process owners. Explain to them the approximate time that the audit is going to take and the resources that you are going to deploy from your side for that period at their office or offsite, as the case may be again. At this point in the entrance meeting, you are signing off on the scope. You may share the list of requirements. So here, once you sign off on the scope, the chances of you having a obstacle in a later stage pertaining to a particular scope item is lesser. The auditee knows what you're going to audit, so they can be prepared accordingly. Moving to fieldwork, you may gather evidences to accomplish the objectives. Walkthroughs may be held, interviews may be held with various process owners at this stage. You may document your findings, their inputs, look at the documentations, which may be invoices or certain other documentation, for testing on a sample basis. And general fieldwork is carried out during this period, which is the crux of any audit. Once you have finished the audit here, you may call for an exit meeting where you may discuss the audit results, your observations. If there are any queries from the stakeholder, they may be addressed at this level. And when you are suggesting a recommendation for the corrective approach, always try to look at it from the practicality of the same. If it will be taken care by the auditee in this case, do not always suggest something that might not be taken care of within the intended time. So here it's very important to discuss with your auditee about the practicality of the corrective action plan. When you move from the draft audit stage, you may now issue the draft report to the stakeholders for their comments. Once you obtain the certain target dates and their comments, you may then release the final report to the appropriate levels in the company. Here is where you close the audit, and before you start your subsequent next audit, you may take a follow-up at the form of an action taken report, whether the target dates are met, whether the corrective action is taken. You may test the same. If at all there are some open items, you may also choose to re-audit. So this is how a particular process-based audit is run, and planning being our first pillar of the same. Now we'll dive into the main topic for the day, which is the steps that we have to see when we plan the internal audit. What is a risk-based audit approach? Firstly, to understand the organization, seeking the business information, what are the sectoral updates, taking all sorts of background research that is available in the form of industry reports, public domain, Google or internet is there for support today. And taking out the material impact due to these external factors that may impact the company or the sector. Now, this is certain value add that you may try to bring in, and you have to be a bit sensitive about the same when you're planning the audit. Identification of the audit universe. Like I've said previously, the core plus support functions in the company constitute the audit universe. Ensure that the same is documented. Risk assessment. If the matrix is in place, well and good. At this stage, timely identification of risks that are applicable to the business, the risk score, the risk priority, the risk rating. Ensure that the same is being documented. If not, you may provide that support to the client in this case. Audit planning. At this stage, who are the resources that you're going to allocate? Is there a hierarchy in place below the partner level? Who is the manager? Who is the audit lead? Who are those audit assistants or audit article assistants who are going to work, and what are their responsibilities? It's very important to allocate roles and responsibilities at the outset. The skills required, again, it may be a mix of experience and freshers, but the team needs to know the subject matter that they are auditing. It cannot be that we are learning on the job every time, because then your scope of providing value add to the client is going to be minimal. Time frame, try to, as far as possible, estimate very closely to the fieldwork time and the draft report stage when you're going to reach there. Try to estimate that time, at the best possible. And communication is very important to the auditee or the client in this case. With this help, you will create the audit plan. Such plan is discussed with the management. At this stage, you may solicit feedback. If there are any feedbacks that require you to amend your plan, it is to be done at this stage. Once the auditee and the audit firm are on the same page, the same plan may be then communicated to the board or the audit committee for their approval. It is tabled there. And once approved, the implementation of such plan will start as you start any new financial year. Now that we are in the month of March, planning has begun, which you will be deploying from April onwards. It may be quarterly, it may be monthly again, as the case may be. And we are at that stage where planning is actually being done at many of our firms, I think, from participants who are there on today's seminar. Again, when you talk of risk assessment, it's important to assess the risk on a periodic basis. I could suggest annually, again, basis the size of your company and commensurate to the business. You may define the periodicity. It may be within the year, it may be annually, it may be biannually. When it comes to updating the audit plan, do not do it only from your side. It has to go through a certain process. It needs to have the approvals from the management of the company as well. So please ensure that communication in this regard is ensured. Step 1, that is understanding the organization, analyzing the documentations. Now, when we've said that we need to read up, when we need to do a research on public or background research, what do we actually look at? From the company, you will get the hierarchy of that particular department. You will get the organization chart of the entire company, the authorization matrix. Now, many cases, if you look at SMEs or emerging corporates, here is a scope for improvement for us. They may know the authorization matrix, but it may not be documented as such. So ensure that at least as part of your audit, it is documented at some stage. Next, does the company have a vision or a mission statement? If not, it's better to at least document their intent as part of your working papers. Next, as part of your audit and your list of requirements, you may look at the SOPs. An SOP is the standard operating procedures, the manuals, the process flows. Many companies use the nomenclature in a different way, but it is your basic guideline that you will use to audit a particular department. So ensure that this is in place. It is signed off. It has the version mentioned very clearly and the date. Many times using an editable version may be detrimental to your interest as internal auditors. So ensure that there is a version and a signed off copy is given to you. Review of past reports, again from auditors, or it may be industry reports. It's very important to take key aspects from the same. Annual reports, again, which are available in public domain. Filings that the company has made. Are there any adverse reportings from the statutory auditors? Again, you need to know the same. What business processes are entailed in the particular company? It's very important for us if we have certain 6 to 8 departments that we need to audit during the year. It's very important for us to do a deep dive to understand the processes in detail, because you're auditing something that the auditee department is doing on a day-to-day basis. If we have, say, 15 days to audit, you need to understand in such a way that you can provide that kind of a value addition during your span with them. Again, news reports, RSS feeds. There are many in today's world where we use the internet. Information is available at right there at this click, basically. So you do not have, as an auditor, an excuse that you could not find certain data. There are many means and ways to do the same, and then it's your skill as an auditor to pull the absolute important things out of it. Interact with stakeholders. You need to be talking to the key members of the management, get their inputs as to what they expect from the audit. What are their findings? Suppose you are speaking to someone from the board or the audit committee. They may be on the boards of certain similar sized companies, so that becomes a peer to you. What are the best practices that they are also deploying? Similarly, you may be an auditor of a similar company, which is a certain larger company. Is there a scope for you to bring the best practice to your client? So here is the interaction, which becomes a very value-added interaction. Please do not skip this step. Interact with promoters, board, audit committee, like I said, and walkthroughs with process owners. No audit is complete without you understanding what's absolutely happening at the shop floor level. Have your ears to the ground, because that's where you will feel the pulse of the company. You will know what is going on, and that will make your audit output more efficient. Step number 2 is about identification of the audit universe. As I previously said, the auditable unit can be a department, it can be a process, it can be an entity within the same group, it can be a function, or it can be a location as well. Company having pan-India presence, that could be a location as well. Core processes, again, could be order to cash, which is nothing but sales. Procure to pay, which is nothing than purchases. Inventory, logistics. Support, like finance accounts, HR, IT systems. Stat compliances, yes, stat compliances is very important. Like I said, audit committees are very interested in 100% compliance to stat compliances. So during your auditable period, at least do a deep dive on all the applicable acts as far as possible. And lastly, in today's world, there are certain qualitative indicators that need to be audited as well, because it's becoming of more paramount importance to the board. Safety audits, something regarding to health, hazardous, things, and ESG, which is environmental, social governance. Audit committees are taking more and more importance of the same. So as internal auditors, you are already into the process. Can you add certain parameters or certain segments to your offering is something that you can check, and you can maybe give a qualitative output apart from the usual auditable units that you do. You may take these areas as well. Step number 3 is about risk assessment. The internal auditors need to conduct an overall risk assessment. Now, if there is a RCM in place, just test the same. If there is not, it becomes a separate assignment for you where you can prepare the RCM, the risk control matrix for the various departments that are being audited. Identify the most significant risks that apply, which will have a critical score as well, and chart your audit engagements based on this risk prioritization. So if you have identified, say, out of 10 risks in a particular department, 3 are absolutely important. You need to plan your audits so that you're taking care of those 3 on paramount importance. The medium-sized risks then are taken up next, and the low risks can be taken up in the end. But for an overall coverage, which will be of great output to the client, ensure that the high risks are being taken care of. Review the existing risk control matrix and test the controls. Prepare, like I've just said. Now, what are the risks? Now, we've spoken of risk assessments. Do you know the types of risks that constitute in this whole arena of risk assessments? Operational risks that are basic inherent ones in the business process, financial risks that may have financial impact, a tangible impact of, say, excess uses of working capital, excess cash flows, duplicate payments. It may come under financial risk. A compliance risk may be something to do with non-adherence to stat compliances, non-adherence to statutory acts that apply, which may have, again, a penal implication or an imprisonment implication, as the act says. IT risk is something that you have identified a loophole in the ERP or a particular process you have found which is not system-driven. It still has a manual control, which has a risk of being overridden. A reputation risk is something to do with the product or the service that the company is giving to its customers. If there is a certain deficiency that exists, or if there is something detrimental from the company's offerings which may call on the brand or the goodwill, it may be termed as a reputation risk. So again, it becomes very important as internal auditors. If you can identify such things, they may not have a financial impact per se, but it's very important in today's world where, if your company, for example, is dealing directly with a B2C, it's absolutely important for us to point out reputational risks, because on a day-to-day basis, the brand is being affected. A fraud risk, again, if you happen to detect teaming and leading or various fraud indicators, try to bring out fraud risk as well. Per se, from internal audit, we may not look at it like a forensic or a fraud auditors, but it's very natural for us to find or to detect something that may cause a fraud. So it's very important to have prevention, which is better than cure. You may save the company from a certain bigger impact in the future. Step number 4 is about audit planning. Here, the internal auditor may consider inputs from various stakeholders, and with that, you finalize the audit plan for the year. At the start of the year, sign it off with the board. Again, a core and support processes, a various mix is given. For example, if I may say, if quarter 1 is April to June, you may want to take up sales, which is a core audit function. If the situation provides for the same, you may take up a support function as well. So you get a core plus support audit area when you take up for a particular period, and this will enable you to cover, for say, 4 core and 4 support during the entire year. Again, a lot of value to the client. You may define the frequency of audit runs in the audit plan at the start of the year itself. A detailed scope, I would advise, needs to be exhaustively prepared. Again, from your experience, if you're doing the audit for a subsequent year and you're not a first timer, you may want to develop further from your experience of the first year. And in the other case where you are doing it for the first time, your research, your walkthroughs, your interviews with the stakeholders will help you chart a very exhaustive audit plan, which will be more relevant given the scenario of the business and the size of the client. Here, once you make the plan, do deliberate and communicate to the HODs so that they are in tune with you with regard to the scope and the coverage. If they have any suggestions, they will come from them at this stage. Notify the auditing departments well in advance so that reasons such as staff not being there in place, them not being able to give you the data in time, for example, you will be taking care of all those obstacles if your communication is done in advance. Whenever you find an observation, please try to deep dive for the root cause analysis. Now, from my experience, there are 3 major pillars. One is related to people, the second is related to business process, and the third is related to IT. You may broadly categorize your root cause of a particular observation under these 3. try to find out the actual root cause so that you avoid a repeat observation in a subsequent audit for the same deficiency or the anomaly that you found. How the auditor plans to approach 100% compliance with regulatory requirements. In a particular situation, the time frame available to you may not allow you to touch on all the acts per se, from labor acts or non-labor acts or certain central or state acts that apply to the particular client. You may break the same down. You may take certain acts in this particular audit run. You may take certain acts in the subsequent audit run to give you an overall picture, especially of the important penal or imprisonment implications, to non-contraventions of the act. You may break it down in such a way that you can actually deep dive into certain select acts. Overall time span of the audit, that is from the start, the planning stage, right to the issuance of the final report, again need to be mapped with the scale of remuneration and the resources that you have available in your team. It's very important for us as auditors. Value addition is at one side. End of the day, you also have to look at your resource allocation, what remuneration you are going to earn. It needs to go hand in hand. It cannot be lopsided at any stage for a healthy audit. Step 5 is about the plan discussion with the management. Again, being said, such plan has to be approved by the board so as to not have any problems during the year. Ensure that the same is recorded in the board meeting minutes and you have a minutes copy. Assurance to be given by us internal auditors to the board or the audit committee on the coverage of all important processes. Now, certain high risk processes may be covered once a year. If you see certain medium risk departments, you may take it once in 2 years, or certain low risk support functions you may take once in 3 years. So typically, in my experience, again, a 3-year audit outlook can be done. You can break down the various departments first once in a year, once in 2 years, once in 3 years, so that you're covering the entire auditable universe in a very detailed way on a 3-year plan. Propose estimated timelines of fieldwork, report issuance to your auditee and to the stakeholders. Again, communication being of prima importance here. Your audit plan at all stages needs to consider inputs from the auditee, the frequency, the timing of these audits, and you need to meet them as well. Walk the talk. Resource allocation, if you are deputing certain resources, stick to the same because then your completion is again affected if there is something up and down in the resource allocation. Skills management needs to be in line with the complexity. If it's a production audit per se, you need someone who understands a manufacturing company, who understands the intricacies of the production department. So your skills in your team need to be commensurate to the complexity of the audit. Have a realistic approach to the engagement. You know, if a particular deep dive may take a lot of time, please ensure that you are at least allocating certain resources, or you're sticking to the scope and not going wayward so that it will override the timelines that you have planned for this audit. Again, when you take out any process or you're auditing any department per se, check the system reliance, or if the ERP is in place, whether it's a new ERP, whether the ERP is already in place for a long time. Hence, you're checking the maturity of the particular process. It may be ERP, again, like I said, it may be legacy practices in an SME or an emerging corporate. Certain practices which are done for years and years, they know it like the back of their hand. It may not be documented per se, but if you talk to someone who's been in the company for 15-20 years, they will tell you the process flow in a span of 5-10 minutes. As auditors, it's very important for us to document what we do as part of our working papers and notes. So at this stage in the interview, you can document that same in a form of a flowchart. This will help you know the maturity of the process, if there is a maker checker in place or not, and that gives us the insight to see where the problem may lie. Step number 6 is about having this plan approved from the higher ups. Once the plan is approved, ensure that it is shared with the HODs of the various auditable units. When you look at if an audit plan may undergo change or not during the year, it may be due to external or internal problems, or changes being the better word. There may be changes in laws, regulations, industry scenario. As we've seen over the last 2 years, many scenarios or many industries have been impacted per se by the pandemic. So there are some things that you need to take into consideration. You cannot use the same checklist that you are doing in the year 2018 or 19 if you're auditing the same company today. You need to be more realistic. If certain things have undergone a change, ensure that it's brought into your plan and program. If there is a change at the leadership level or a new management coming in, they may have a certain vision or a mission for the company. Ensure that you're talking to them. If there are any tweaks that need to be done to your audit plan, please bring the same to be more relevant. If an acquisition or a sale of business has happened in your client company, again, that may require you to change the audit plan. That department may be dropped or certain department may be added as well. Certain new risks that were unforeseen at this point. Suppose you're planning an audit today for FY 22-23. There may be a risk that comes in mid-year, suppose in October, November 22. You need to bring that risk in the form of a plan or program, again, because you need a prevention better than cure kind of an approach. There may be changes, political or environment scenario, war, like we're seeing what's happening in the world today, a war which is not on the cards suddenly in February has changed a lot of dynamics. Does it impact your client if they have exports to that particular region? Yes, it may. If it is imports to that particular region where war is happening, it may have an impact. How it affects your audit plan is left to you, your judgment as an internal auditor, but you need to have full information of what's happening in the world. If the plan needs to be amended mid-year, please communicate to the board with specific reasons and seek their approval. And then the audit plan, again, once amended, has to be implemented as planned. From experience over the years, I have tried to bring out certain challenges when you plan the internal audit or when you're again from planning stage moving to the other three pillars. Legacy practices versus documented SOPs. Like I said, in an SME or emerging corporates, mostly when they're family or promoter driven, there may be legacy practices which are known to the particular group of individuals who is centric to the particular company, but may not be documented. As an auditor, bring out the recommendation that the process needs to be documented in the form of a SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, or a manual, or a flow chart, as the case may be, because making it a system-driven more than a people-driven approach is where the SME today will step up to being at the next stage once they grow. Resistance to change, many a times once you suggest a particular direction, maybe certain problems of the stakeholders there, of being process owners who may not want to change the way they are doing certain activities today, even though it's for their betterment. So it is your skill as an internal auditor to convince what it's that what's the loophole that you're trying to close, what is the risk that you're trying to mitigate, and here your conviction to your suggestion is very important to bring down the resistance to change. Historically, internal audit has been also considered to be a compliance requirement. Some cases where Section 138 applies, internal audit happens to be a compliance requirement or a cost center per se. But once you bring out value adds, once you bring out certain suggestions which are very integral to improving certain processes, you are then looked at with that kind of a value addition department. You are there. From a cost center, you need to move to a profit center where you are giving them a cost optimization measures or a cost control measures where a tangible benefit is seen by the management. Then, your importance as an internal auditor and the output that we give is heard across the organization, and the respect obviously comes with it. Lack of top-down approach. The management at the top level does not want you to go and deep dive for certain processes. There is not much that you can do, and it is definitely a challenge. Hence, the previous point that we saw, if you bring out those tangible benefits or you point out certain anomalies which can be corrected and improving the process, the top-down approach gets better. From my experience, again, I've seen, and they then want to listen to you, your suggestion more like an advisor, so that you help them plan for the future. Pressure on audit fees. Now, looking at it from an audit firm perspective, the client always wants the moon. You always, wanting to reach or do maximum work in the specific fees or that are, promised to us as internal auditors annually. It's very important for us to plan the work or plan the field work commensurate to the audit fees that you're being paid. It's very difficult. So it's a case-to-case basis, but this is a practical difficulty that is being faced across the board. There are certain, historically, again, financial audit or tick audit or voucher-based audit or ledger scrutiny only. That is not an internal audit in today's world. You need to be taking up processes during the year. You need to be looking at it from a risk-based audit approach. That's where the world has moved today. Taking up newer areas like ERP audits as well. There is a lot that internal audit can do, and not just a financial audit or a ledger scrutiny before the statutory audit comes in. So changing your focus changes the outlook that the client looks at you with. So very important here. Investment constraints. You may suggest a lot of things to the client basis the loopholes that you found, but whether upgradation of the systems will be done, whether ERP loopholes will be tackled by the IT team, whether certain tools or plugins will be used so as to take it away from manual or a people-driven system to more of a system-specific, system-driven system. Whether that will be done, again, it requires a lot of investment or management to take certain calls. So that may pose as a challenge to you. Next is a precaution versus cure again. Next, when we come to staff loyalty, yes. So if you are in a family-owned SME or an emerging corporate, you may point out certain things which are, again, certain problems that you see in the while auditing. There may be a certain section who is again working in the company for a long time, especially in family-driven companies, where they may want to take the burden, take the brunt, and they will try to sweep it under the floor so you do not take it to the higher levels. Again, our intention as an internal auditor is to nip it in the bud. If you find an issue, try to close it as the best possible and communicate your findings to the highest level that is there in the company, so that the output is seen and appropriate action is taken. Do not see that it is stuck in the mid levels only and it does not reach the actual board or the management. Lastly, weak internal controls may again be a problem. This may be due to a team being a smaller team, maybe one or two people only in the team given the particular client. So although you may want to make a checker where one person makes, one person checks, certain clients may not have that. So again, it's a challenge. You need to work around it to ensure that you are giving a suggestion which applies very specifically to the client there, which again becomes a practical recommendation to the client. What is the scope for value add by the internal auditors? Now, this is again from experience, may not remain specific to planning, which is our topic today. Continuous upgradation of your skills. You need to undergo training, take certifications. You may plan one certification a year, but as a leader, if you do not continuously upgrade yourself, there is far less that you can percolate down to your managers or your audit assistants. If you do not learn what's happening across the world, it's very difficult for you to give a relevant output. You need to have knowledge of the recent government announcements that apply to the clients. Today's topic being SMEs or emerging corporates. Now, there were various relaxations in TDS or an amnesty that was announced in the COVID era. Right now, there's an amnesty announced by the Profession Tax Department. Atmanirbhar package that was announced in COVID. You need to be aware at least of certain subsidies and packages that are announced. Again, if the client that you're auditing can take up the benefit, if they're eligible, you may point that out, which may again entail a cost saving or at least an investment saving for your clients. Try to include niche areas as part of your audit, although they are not a core or a support process per se, but subsidies, tax incentives, ESG, CSR, they are important by themselves. Now, CSR, as you may know, there are certain amendments that have happened in the last 6 months, which has made it a very important one. There is also a filing that you need to do with the ROC. So they are becoming or taking that center stage like the other core and support. So try to fill them somewhere into your audit plan or your plan of the auditable units at least once during the year. Map the SMEs practices with the best industry practices. If you're auditing a larger company in the same sector, try to bring the best practices so that today's SME can become or inculcate them today itself, so they do not do it at a very later stage, which again becomes very difficult. Root cause analysis, we've also spoken about this in the past. It will help to avoid repeat observations and help you provide practical solutions as well. Next point is very important. Try to shuffle the quality, the process audit runs. If you're doing quarterly runs, if you're doing sales, for example, in April to June, try to take up sales in July to September in the subsequent financial year. This will also help you judge how the company does at various times in the year. Is the business cyclical or seasonal? This is where you'll come to know. As an auditor, try to be a good communicator, try to improve your presentation skills. We are learning every day. But as internal auditors, we're given the opportunity to interact with various departments, right from the base level right to the top. You're expected to be giving a presentation to the audit committee. It needs to be crisp. You need to communicate in a span of a very less time that is given to you, what you've done over the last 3 months. So that is how important communication is. So try to build on those skills. A mantra that I use personally: work not documented is work not done. This just does not apply to internal audits. This applies to any assurance practice that you do across, be it stat audit, be it internal audit, you need to document, because at a later stage when you're asked to prove what you've done, maybe 6 months back or a year back, this documentation in the form of the audit approach, the audit methodology, your audit working papers, how you closed a particular audit observation, it's very important that you ensure that your team or the resources that is working is documenting at every stage, rather than doing at the end the hush hush job and just having something documented for the sake of it. Look ahead, build for a better tomorrow. As it said, an SME today is tomorrow's emerging corporate, and then it goes to a mid-size or a large size. So processes, once you want to set them in, never a better opportunity than to do it for an SME or an emerging corporate. Because if you do it today, if you inculcate today itself, tomorrow they will benefit and they will see the benefits over the years. If you are able to help today, again, the importance of you as internal auditors also becomes very important. Next, just don't try to, in your mindset, just don't try to remain an internal auditor. Always try to move from that to being a trusted business advisor, because that's where you can actually sit with the board level and give practical suggestions, and not just as an auditor. So the trajectory should move from you being an auditor to an advisor as you proceed in your career. Like Nanda sir has also said today, failing to plan is planning to fail. This is a mantra that I suggest all internal auditors, when you're starting your next audit or you're planning your next audit, please keep this mantra with you. And with this, I end my presentation today. I hope it's been of some value to you. So thank you to everyone present here for a patient hearing.
Thank you, sir. Starting by doing what's necessary and then do what's possible. And suddenly you are doing the impossible. So for those of us whom this topic was difficult, is now possible due to our session speaker. The way, sir, you took us through the topic is highly commendable. I, on behalf of the committee, take the pleasure to thank you for your valuable insights that you shared with our participants today. I request you to stay back for answering the Q&A from the participants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So today's participants wants to unlock the golden potential that resides within themselves, to embark on the internal audit journey, to explore whether they are a superstar or not. We invite Ms. Bhavani Joyce, ma'am. To formally introduce her, she is an Associate Vice President and Head of Internal Audit and SOX ex Infosys, who has its headquarters in Bangalore, India. She has been instrumental in driving transformation in internal audit through automation, analytics, and evaluating the position of internal audit team as value-adding business partners. She jointly led Infosys to win Institute of Internal Auditors of India National Excellence Award in 2018, 19, and 21. Prior to this, she was a director at Deloitte India's internal audit practice, having worked previously in the UK for 15 years, including Director of Risk and Assurance at Cancer Research UK, UK's largest NGO, where she was responsible for leading the internal audit, risk management, and health safety functions. Over 22 years of professional experience, she is a regular speaker on the topics of governance, assurance, etc. She has a wide experience as an NLP practitioner, and she was also the president of IIA India Bangalore chapter for financial year 2021. She also coaches finance and management students about their career options and about how important soft skills are to make a great start in their career. With this inspiring profile, who else could have been a better orator today? I request ma'am to take over the session. The floor is open for you.
Thank you, Chami, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you today. And as I was being told about the number of participants on the call, I just can't believe that people are willing to give up a Saturday evening to spend time listening to us. Sorry, Chami, is there an echo? I think it's gone now.
Yes, ma'am. It was an echo 2 minutes back. Now it's gone.
Perfect. Okay. So I know I'm probably standing between you and your dinner, and therefore but I hope this topic is light enough and motivational enough for you to give me the 45 minutes that I probably want to take to share what I have prepared. I did try to do this session in August for the IASB, and at that point I overran badly. So I'm going to do my best. I've got my stopwatch here as well. So because I'm really passionate about this topic, and I hope I will not overrun. So I'm going to keep that in mind. And Chami, if I do go slightly over, please just indicate to me that I have. So I don't know what you might be thinking with the topic internal audit superstar. We all in our lives want to achieve excellence, right? Excellence is this feeling of being a little bit more outstanding than all of your peers, a little bit better than perhaps what you are today. And it's not by chance that people become superstars, right? People become superstars through detail and meticulous planning, and to I guess what Nandaji said at the beginning, failing to plan is planning to fail. I think that could not be a more apt statement for the session I have as well planned for you. So let's kind of see what's in store. This is what I'll cover. I'll give you my perspective of what an internal audit superstar is. I will also talk about a little bit on how you can create your individual path to excellence. I think we all recognize that we all come from different walks of life, different experiences, different chances in life, different opportunities. So much is different that you cannot walk in the path of another to achieve excellence for yourself. So how do we carve out and understand and acknowledge that there's something called an individual path to excellence? And then, it's a little unfortunate, but there are a number of times I speak to people who are looking to change careers or to grow in their careers and get a sense of helplessness that, I so much is out of my control. Actually, the reverse is true. So much is in your control. It's just that you haven't made the choice to take that control. That's my submission. I think as we shape our journey towards becoming excellent, we forget the amount of power that we have in our hands to make the best go of our careers as internal auditors. And then some final thoughts. So on that note, let me just talk about, first of all, why this is such an important topic today. I mean, it's always been an important topic, but more so now than ever before. And that's because of what's happening in the internal audit talent market. I have been in this line of work. I think my profile is a little dated. It's now 24 years that I've been an internal auditor. And I can't believe ever a time where the market has been so volatile and versatile in terms of the talent market for internal auditors. We're constantly, those who are hiring, I think every company is trying to hire, and we're just not getting, there's a mismatch between expectation and what we're getting through the door. Mismatches in terms of skills, in terms of attitudes and attributes, mismatches in terms of expectations on salary, mismatches in terms of many, many aspects, right? Companies are under different kinds of pressure. Internal audit teams are under different kinds of pressure, and the market is actually, quite frankly, gone crazy. It's not wrong to say it's gone crazy, because when we look at comparative profiles, somebody who's been working for 6 years post their CA are drawing drastically different salaries, and I don't understand. I still fail to understand how it can be so diverse. And interestingly, I had attended a session just a few days ago about valuation of companies, and it was interesting to see that the speaker said about the difference between value and price. I think we as internal auditors look at ourselves as people who add value, but what the market is willing to pay us is dependent on value to the entity that is hiring us, and therefore price is all over the place, and price being the salaries that the market is commanding today, which means that as auditors trying to swim in this talent market, you need to be able to demonstrate differentiated skills. So that's one real need to be able to see where are you on your path to excellence. Of course, companies have budget and scope changes, and they're being asked to do more with less, which makes it even harder. And on one hand, talent is costing more, but companies' expectations from audit functions is increasing. So how does that marry up? Boundaryless, at least those of us who are desperately trying to find talent are finding that more people are coming into India for talent because of this. The pandemic has literally changed the dynamics of remote working, and the talent market, global audit talent market, has never been more boundaryless than it is now. So unless you know how you're going to stand out in this boundaryless global competitive market, it's going to be a challenge. And then, of course, the pandemic, again, some of the good things coming out of the pandemic is the fact that we have now been able to understand the importance of social and mental well-being by being at home, by being with loved ones, by watching what is happening for those who have reached burnout and various other things. So much so, today the talent market is also demanding that companies look at some of these aspects as a must-have as they make their career choices. People are willing to take pay cuts if the company is willing to, able to give them a better ability to, achieve social and mental well-being. But the more important thing is not about the company willing to give it to you. As internal auditors, do you know what your measurement of social and mental well-being is? So that when you go out and look for your path to excellence, you know that you've come upon that opportunity. Right? Because often what happens is if we go and look for something aimlessly, the answer to our question could be right in front of us, and we would miss it. So I think it's time to also reconsider now whether your definition of internal audit excellence and success on a personal level incorporates all of the essential elements beyond just opportunity and perhaps salary, which often has become the primary measurements, and of course growth, and the measurements of success in internal audit. So on that note, I kind of stumbled into interest in human psychology about 9 years ago. Sometime in the UK, during my days in the UK, I stumbled upon executive coaching, life coaching, and a lot of big questions kind of came into my head. And those big questions continued to exist even today, because for as long as humans exist, the human way of thinking is a big mystery. And therefore, as auditors, we have so much choice and there's so many opportunities and so many decisions to make, that have we really considered the big questions in our career, which is basically, which is basically, how are you keeping sane and thriving through all of this complexity that's happening? Do you know what makes you happy? Right? As we spend hours in our jobs, hours training, attending webinars such as these, hours trying to increase our skills and competencies, do you really know what makes you happy? So that's the first big question. If you can't answer that, then what is your direction? Right? So that's the first part, because it is safe to say that it is an expectation that every minute you spend working, living, the hours in work and the hours outside work must directly result in your ultimate life goals. And I am sure, I've simplified this, but I'm sure being happy is one of everybody's life goals. And how do you know when you've made it? If you haven't asked yourself or defined what happiness or success or your ultimate life goals are, how do you know when you've made it? How do you know when you've made it to excellence as an auditor? How do you know that excellence is directly contributing to your happiness? How do you go from good to great? Everybody's here because they've made a decision to study and become accountants, and they've made a choice to come into internal audit, and they have made a great start in their career. But how do you go from good to great? It's a big mystery question. We all, I guess, I would say for myself, we attempt various things, but we're not quite sure if that's really going to take us there. And therefore comes to your next point is, what's your next step? How do you know the next, if you're going to spend 50 hours learning a new certificate, how do you know that next step is directly going to help you to go from good to great? And that once you've got that, and then how do you know you've gotten to great, and how do you know that achievement of greatness is making you happy, right? It's kind of all interrelated. So here comes my question about what is an internal audit superstar. When you go, we've heard from the two speakers. Samit talked a lot about the kind of competencies you need to put into audit planning, how you eventually need to become a business advisor. Chetan talked about the importance of auditors spotting cultural mismatches and being confident and rigorous in challenging some of those cultures, because we owe it to the stakeholders of the company to do so. So one essential I guess, component of an audit superstar and a given is that you have to be technically competent. So, that's kind of your starting point, right? Business acumen, advanced auditing skills, data analytics, intelligent automation. Today, if you say somebody says, I've never used Power BI in my life, we have to question, like, what have they been doing these last 2 years when people have been talking about analytics so much? One of the most essential tools, or the simplest tools, is something like a Power BI, or even, I've never used Excel. We're still doing sample testing. So where are you in that technical competency journey? Have you understood intelligent automation? Have you had some experience in technology transformation? So these are the kinds of skills, if you look at profiles today, people are looking for. So that's step one. Are you an internal audit superstar? It's a question you need to ask yourself on where you are against all of these technical expectations of an excellent internal auditor. And I have got some slides later on how one might go about, I guess, doing some kind of assessment, a very, very simple, non-complex assessment of where am I today and where do I need to be. And of course, if to begin with, if you can demonstrate this, then you've got the ability to command some premium resources, which is better salary. You can actually make more meaningful impact, because the stakeholder is willing to listen to you, right? You can't, if you don't even get the seat at the table or the door doesn't open for you, how are you even going to make an impact sitting from somewhere in the back? And you are able to have a greater influence and respect, because what you say is supported with a strength, a really strong technical competence, that what you say is heard, and that results in influence and respect. Now comes the other part. Given you are now technically competent, you've got all of these essentials nailed down, are you really still an internal audit superstar? Because like I said, the market for talent is getting more and more complex. So the next part is, in addition to technical competencies, how about all of these power skills? I know, I have recently switched from calling them soft. I don't think these are soft skills. I think these are essential power skills. So that's my preferred phrase now. Where are you on these power skills? If somebody were to ask you to do a gap assessment or a risk assessment, and we do this every day, don't we, for our work? We do a risk assessment when we do an audit. If this was an audit of yourself and you had to starting with a risk assessment, that not having analytical thinking skills is a risk to you as an internal auditor and your ability to achieve excellence, what would the answers be, right? Analytical thinking, communication skills, influencing skills, storytelling, professional skepticism. Do you believe very easily? Do you really exercise skepticism? Skepticism can only come if you are widely read, that you've understood what kinds of situations happen in the industry globally, in the global business world, for you to even be able to increase your quotient of skepticism, right? If you are unaware of what's happening, how can you be a skeptic? Your interpersonal skills. Today, we are working in a very interdependent world. Teams are not even meeting each other. The gig economy in the space of audit is also increasing. People are like, here is an assignment for 2 months. You may not, eventually the talent market may go in that direction. Your interpersonal skills to be able to make a connection in the first half an hour of meeting somebody who you're going to work with for 2 months is important, right? Where are you with empathy? People are going through so much personal change. Your stakeholders who you're auditing are going through so much in their personal lives. They're not sharing that with you, but it's all over their face. When they come for an audit conversation, how well are you able to relate? And then exercise emotional intelligence and saying something's not quite right. How do I go aggressive? Do I not go aggressive? Trust building, right? Can you please go and mute somebody? There's a bit of sound in the background. Trust building, you have to be able to automatically ooze this element of trust that I am trustworthy, therefore please share with me, right? Because if you don't know where you're going wrong in terms of building trust, then how is somebody going to take you as a trusted business advisor? And interestingly, there's a lot of research that has been done on the anatomy or the building blocks of trust. Maybe for another day, but the anatomy and the building blocks of trust is actually a very now well researched framework in which you can again benchmark how am I doing on all of these building blocks. Am I letting myself down in one of those trust building blocks? And therefore, while I keep trying to build trust with another stakeholder, I find myself having to go a few steps back. But in spite of all this, are you still truly an internal audit superstar? Because I think there is more. There is more than technical skills. There's more than these essential or power skills. There is something called the, attributes or mindsets that people want. People nowadays, you hire least for technical skills. Because we know that technical skills are so changing so quickly that it is easier to train somebody on the kind of technical skills you want. Harder to train on power competencies, but still trainable. I can put you through a course, but it's extremely difficult to teach you the attributes and qualities of a great, excellent auditor. Right? And a great, excellent anything in the professional world. So beyond all of these, the interview often focuses on some of those scenarios in which you have to exercise genuine attributes of greatness. Now, what might some of these be? In my research, I found a great article from actually several years ago, I think 6 years ago. As I read that article, I was thinking, oh my God, it's almost perfect for this question. And I've made one or two modifications to these. I've given you the link. I think the slides will be shared. You can go through and read the article yourself. But essentially, the article talks about the 8 attributes that still make superstars in business. And I think I'm not going to spend too much time on this in the interest of time. But if you go through these things, it absolutely makes perfect sense to your role as an internal auditor, right? Are you measuring yourself and others on results? If you are a team leader, are you measuring your team members? Genuinely, are you accountable to yourself for your actions and the actions of your team? Are you able to use all of your experiences into your decision making? If somebody were to analyze a decision that you've made, would you be able to go back and demonstrate that the years of intuition and experience that you have brought together into that decision? Because a decision that can stand up to scrutiny as an auditor is a decision that will be respected, regardless of it being an unfavorable or unliked decision, right? How do you deal with complex situations? Do you make it more complex or do you simplify it? Your stakeholders are already in a level of anxiety because audit, is entering their personal space, even though it's a professional role and it's a professional setup in the organization. Everyone's jobs and careers are very personal to them. And when you audit, at the end of the day, it's a human to human interaction, right? You can't take away the human element of an audit. You can do analytics, you can do automation. At the end of the day, everything is about one human being to another human being. It's about interpersonal relationships, about I'm here to help you, I'm here to help the organization. We both want the same thing. So how do you play a role in making it simple, simplifying this to another person? Are you really focusing on urgent priorities? I've been in conversations where people talk about, when somebody's saying repeatedly, 30% of my team are down with COVID, and we are having conversations about, but you haven't automated this control. It doesn't matter. Are you genuine? So when you have a conversation with your stakeholders, are you genuinely able to stand up to the fact that I'm focusing on the most important things? How well are your skills on root cause analysis? Root cause analysis, while can be taught, is actually a very instinctive thing, right? And if you ask children, I'm sure many of you are parents, and I'm sure you take your instinctive root cause analysis skills home, because my children, for example, find it very difficult to get out of mistake when I keep asking follow-up questions until I go to the seventh level of why this has happened, right? So, children of internal auditors are going to find it very difficult to be free to do what they want, because we are instinctively, going to ask about the root cause of things that happen. But how well are you doing it? If you look at your audit report, do you genuinely believe I have used my instinct on root cause analysis sufficiently to genuinely help the company fix it at the heart of the problem, and not just do a band-aid and work on the symptoms? Because if you can, and trust me, every single stakeholder wants to do what's best for the company. It is just that sometimes people lose their way. And, Chetan's opening session was fantastic about exactly what went wrong. Nobody joined a company intending to cause harm or to fail or to have a bad culture. They lost their way. And auditors, had they used their intuitive root cause analysis capability and combined with a few other attributes here, I am sure would have avoided some of these disasters, corporate, cultural, and ethical disasters. How well are you building your network? And those of us who are dependent on family members to make our lives simpler, joint families is still a big thing in India. Nuclear families with a network of uncles, aunties, friends. You realize the importance of network and personal lives. It's equally, in fact, more important in your professional life. But if I were to ask you all, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you at naturally building a network for your career as an internal auditor? I invite you to perhaps consider where you are on that. Again, I know that Chetan has taken the lead, for example, on certain, WhatsApp forums that is about addressing this particular point on supporting a network and building a support network. And the network is fantastic in helping each other out. So each of you need to go back and think, where am I and what am I going to do differently to get this? The fear of failure is huge to us taking action, right? Because I fear failure, I procrastinate, and because I procrastinate, I delay taking action. And by the time I delay, the issue I was afraid will cause failure will manifest itself and fail. So, if you feel yourself to be caught in this loop of failure and procrastination, then how are you going to break it? Because quite frankly, I don't know any successful auditor or successful anybody who could say, through procrastination, I succeeded, right? So these are the attributes that we want to see in an excellent internal auditor. Recognizing that no risk or no action means no gain, right? Being inertia or sitting and doing nothing will get you nowhere, right? So again, and I bring this up because we are not our resources, and that's my next slide. Our resources are so limited. Where we spend our limited resources need to absolutely direct towards gain. That gain could be personal, it could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be societal, it could be your ultimate goal of attaining transcendence. People have spiritual goals. Whatever it is, not taking action and not taking risk will mean no gain, right? And then the last thing, I kind of brought this last thing in. I think being able to operate with integrity and trustworthiness is absolutely important. And to the point on corporate failures, right? Companies that survived corporate, bad decisions survived it because the bad decision was made in a context of a company that had strong integrity and trustworthiness. They genuinely thought they were doing the right thing. And they can prove to the world that I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. And because of that, there is forgiveness. And because of that, those companies survive. You take any company that has survived, every company will have setbacks, will have an event that may cause, public scrutiny, stakeholder confidence to be shaken. But they survive because of integrity and trustworthiness. The same attributes apply to us at an individual level. When you operate as an internal auditor, if you can operate with integrity and trustworthiness, doing the right thing even when no one is looking, even if that results in some clash or some fallout, you will survive and you will grow and become excellent, because these two attributes are non-negotiable, non-shakable. So coming back to why it's important, where are you if you were to put a measurement around how consistently am I acting with integrity and trustworthiness? Again, a question to you to think about. And if you feel actually I'm not happy with where I am, what am I going to do about it? Now, moving on to my next slide, I think we all want to be excellent. There's no question about it. I think we all want to grow, but and therefore we need to muster our resources to make movement forward, right? Like I said, inertia is kind of keeping still and sitting and doing nothing. If I'm taking for granted, we all want to excel, we all want to succeed, we all want to be happy, and when we take our last breath, we want to say, I have lived a life that was well lived, right? Your career as an internal auditor, since you have chosen to be an internal auditor, plays a huge part, because a good 1/3 of your life or more will be spent in your career, right? If you can't look back at those 30 years of your life and say, this was a career I spent well lived, it has directly attributed to my success as a human being in this lifespan, then what are we doing, right? So therefore, we have to go to great. And some of us are great, I'm sure. I'm still work in progress. I still believe there's a lot for me individually to go forward on. And I would want to believe that we all believe there's never a day that we will stop learning. There's never a day that we will stop growing. And therefore, this is a journey. How are you spending your time? How are you spending your money? And how are you spending your energy and every other resource, right? There's plenty other resources, but I'm kind of focusing on these three things, because time is one of those things that God has given us equally, even if there are so many inequalities in life. Time is one in the world. The poorest, the most sick, the most healthy have all got time which is equal, unless you can, of course, like Harry Potter, reverse time, which of course is a fantasy. Time is equal. Now money, there is a variation in money. Some people say, look, I once went to a seminar, and a very notable CAE from the US, Mr. Larry Harrington, said, you are the business product. When you are an internal auditor, you are the business product that you are selling. And therefore, a business is recommended to spend 25% of its net income back on R&D and in investment on growth. Therefore, you need to spend 25% of your net salary on growing, because if you don't grow, then what are you selling, right? So money, of course, there are so many competing priorities. People have lost jobs, etc. But it's a finite. Time and money to a large extent are finite for most of us. Energy, however, is slightly less finite. I think energy, while if there was an energy meter, we could measure energy. I think energy is also a mindset. I think even if you feel tired, you can still find it in you through kind of self-talk and self-motivation and a mindset to be energetic about something. So I think energy is still very much not as limited as we want to believe it to be. And of course, everything else. So the question, therefore, is how accountable are you on what, why, and how you spend your life resources? And let's talk about this in the context of your role as an internal auditor and your career as an internal auditor and your journey towards excellence. Because, I'll say, for example, most of us live in apartments. And if you were paying your service charge or your, monthly charges to your society, and the lift is not working most of the time, the plants are drying up, the gardener is doing a bad job, there's dirt everywhere, you would say, what's happening? I'm not going to be willing to spend this money paying this for this service charge and not get the results I want. So when we spend money that we earn after paying tax and then we don't get the results we want, we get very frustrated with that. But if I were to ask the same question about how you've spent your time, which is even more limited than money, on yourself and on your life's goals, on your career goals, on your personal goals, what would you say would be the measurement of your accountability for the way you have spent your time? Right? I am sitting here. I'm sure all these speakers today have come here because they've made a choice to spend some time towards giving back or sharing their knowledge. There is definitely a personal reward in spending time talking to all of you today. All of you who've come for this session have chosen to spend time because you have come because you believe there's value to be taken from this session, and therefore you have spent time. Hopefully, you will leave feeling this was time well spent, and therefore you feel happy at the end of the day. I'm accountable for time well spent. But can that be said to be true for all the time that you have spent? Aside, even time spent sleeping, you need to be accountable for. I'll share personally. I find it very difficult to sleep. We all have different issues. I feel I don't have enough sleep, so I'm not happy with how I'm spending time on sleep. I'm sure we all have different challenges around that. So, how accountable are you on the time you have spent? Is it genuinely time well spent, which is going towards my success as a professional internal auditor, towards excellence, towards my life goals? So my next couple of slides is about how you might go about approaching your journey towards excellence, right? Towards this internal audit superstardom. Just before that, I have these two images. I took a photograph of I have these photo frames in my home office. And these two photo frames I thought were really appropriate for today's session because it kind of resonated, with what I was speaking about. Time is free. Harvey McKay said, time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back. Every minute, on this time on earth is ticking, right? So for me, I always refer to this. It's a really important measurement of accountability for how we spend the use of time. The second one is around what are we going to do with this finite, precious time, right? So Stephen Covey, in his years of wisdom sharing, has said, you have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, and non-apologetically, to say no to other things. And the way to do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. When you have a big yes, right, your life's goals are your big yeses, right? Your big questions. When you have clarity on the big questions of life, then the day-to-day questions: do I sign up for this additional course? Do I turn up for this webinar that IASB is hosting? Do I write an article for the internal audit magazine? Do I take my children out for dinner tomorrow evening? Every single question that we have, which is going to take away that 24 hours in a day, needs to be done with such clarity, because and you should be able to say no to everything else and be comfortable with the saying no. Not, oh my God, if I say no, I feel left out. This whole concept of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. That shouldn't exist, because the no is so clear. It's so convinced in your heart that no is the right thing to do. So I think these two are, really beautiful, perfectly written words that kind of should be the basis with which we can look at the next few slides. So the question now is, am I going in the right direction? I am sure, if you were to go and do, an inventory of how you have spent your awake minutes for the last just 1 week, right? What are the buckets in which I've spent my awake minutes? And how much have I spent in each of those buckets? And are those, if I were to go back and question myself and do a self-assessment, were those minutes well spent in the right direction towards my big goals in life, right? Because that's the only way you're going to be accountable for the limited resources that we have in our lifetime. And my submission is that you need to work on it in this order. I'm sure that others may have a different view, but having spent some time on this topic of what makes humans tick and what's important in life, I think these three things, this order is probably right. What are my life goals? What is it I would like, when on my last day, when I look back, and in fact, Stephen Covey in the very first chapter of his highly effective habits of the 7 effectives of highly effective people said, start with the end in mind. what on my last day in my, my funeral or in my dying bed, how will I reflect on my life and say that it was a life well spent and all my decisions and my resources were spent in the right direction. So I have a slide about how you might go about doing an assessment about where you are in life in general. Because if you don't know that, then I don't know how you can measure and be accountable for anything else. And then in my previous presentation, I had actually put competencies before attributes. But in fact, in the last 6 months, as I've been spending a little bit more time on this, I actually now realize that attributes is probably more important than competencies, because attributes it's the bedrock on which you build competencies. If you don't have the right attributes, the right mindsets, actually building competencies becomes more difficult. So back to the slides I had earlier of what are the attributes of superstars. If you can find a way through mentoring, through discussion, through training, through coaching, through anything, to find a way to improve your measurement on those attributes, I think building competencies become a lot easier, because building competencies is a lifelong journey. We've already all embraced the fact that learning is a lifelong journey, that lifelong learning is here to stay. No skill that you learn is going to be sufficient. The reason we have these webinars, continuous professional education sessions, is all about continuous learning, but there's a lot more. If you can continue to learn with the right attributes and attitude in mind, your learning journey becomes a lot easier. So this is the direction in which I would want to submit this. So I've studied and I'm studying to become a coach. I do believe somewhere in my life I stumbled upon executive coaching. I got coached probably about 11 years ago, and I found it a great experience as an executive coach, working with me on my personal journey as an audit head. And then when I asked him kind of what is this session all about and what competencies did he have, he talked about the fact that he trained as an executive coach, and that provoked an interest in me. And so sometime in 2013, I embarked on a journey to learn some of these skills. And I continue to talk about this. Those of you who may know me know that I often speak about various aspects of psychology, perception, and neuro-linguistic programming, various things. Part of that training also is about doing a self-assessment on life. And this chart is called the Wheel of Life. You would have seen it. It's nothing but a spider diagram that we do as auditors. We use this when we do a gap assessment. But this is called the Wheel of Life. If you were to Google it, you would find the Wheel of Life is a extremely well-used tool on how to do a self-assessment on life. And populated in this Wheel of Life are various dimensions that we, at the end of the day, when we're 90 years old or whatever, we want to look back and say, I have spent the resources granted to me in this lifetime well, right? So what are some of the dimensions that we need to be moving forward on to have a great, well-lived life? I know it may be different for you. Some of you may have 12, 13, it doesn't matter. But one step is basically to ask yourself, for each of these segments, where am I now? Let's say, for example, I'm 24 years into my career. I might say my career segment is a 6 or a 7, because I still have I don't believe people stop working when they retire. I believe people continue to work for as long as they can. And therefore, let's assume for a moment, I have another 30 years ahead of me. So my career will continue beyond my age of 60. And I'm only a 6. In spite of having spent 24 years as an internal auditor. So what is my desired state and by when, right? Let's talk about friends and social connect. With the pandemic, this has come down. Perhaps I used to have, it was probably a 5, but now it's probably a 3. What am I going to do? What is my desired state? Things are getting back to normal. I want to make this a 7. I miss my friends, for example. And so on and so forth, right? How are my family relationships? Have I spoken to that uncle I wanted to speak to and I haven't had a chance? Or is are my brothers and my siblings and I on a good, having a good relationship? Where am I on personal growth? Am I really growing professionally and as a human being, right? Where are my finances? Have I got my corpus for retirement sorted out? Where is my health and fitness with the pandemic and the number of health impact we have? Am I doing enough on my journey towards health and fitness? or spiritual and emotional journey? Am I actually, am I able to connect to the higher power? Various things. And I'm saying this because coming back to the same limited resources of time, money, and energy, and a few other things that we have been given the privilege of being given in life. Right now, which 2-3 aspects, if prioritized, will make the most impact on your personal fulfillment? Now, because we're talking in this session with the IASB sponsorship, I would want to believe that one of your dimensions is your career, right? So you believe that by being here today, your career, if you prioritize that a little bit, can have an impact, a good high impact on your personal fulfillment, alongside maybe 2 or 3 other elements. Let's all accept the fact that life, if life was a pie chart, you can the how big each segment you divide your 100% will grow to the extent you focus on it. Nobody can have their cake and eat it. Nobody can be 100% in all of these dimensions. So if you choose to focus on your career, something else is going to suffer. That's a fact. Nobody can say, look, I have the greatest career and I have the best personal growth and the best family relationships and the best finances. It maybe career and finance may grow in tandem, but definitely your spiritual and physical health may suffer. So let us acknowledge that we cannot spend time doing everything. The other thing is, how will working on these priorities impact other people in my life? Let's not forget that we live in an interdependent world. We have family members, we have colleagues. If I start saying, look, I'm going to work on my career, I'm taking a move to another country, how is that going to impact the other people in your life? Maybe that's a great move from an internal audit superstar move, but it's not a great life move, right? So let's be clear on those things. And with this gain clarity, now decide what will you focus on first. I kind of repeated in this session the importance of knowing where you're putting your efforts. Likewise, the same model can be used for all such dimensions, right? Now, let's talk about the attributes. If you were to do the same thing on the attributes, where are you now and what needs to change? Maybe somebody says, look, I overcomplicate things. I want to work on simplifying complexity. Somebody else might say, look, I feel I never measure myself. I do a lot of effort, but I don't know where I am. I really want to improve my mindset and ability to measure myself, and so on and so forth. Somebody else might say, look, I have great ideas, but I never take action, right? So where are you and what are you going to do about it? The next one is around you. Then come your competencies. If you've found a way to improve your attributes, believe me, getting ahead on your competencies is a lot easier. And of course, I've divided this between technical and power skills, right? And again, I invite you to go about evaluating where you are. Because if you're going to invest time in becoming a superstar, it better be well invested. It cannot be by chance, or it cannot be because somebody else was doing this, I'm going to do this. It's your personal journey. And I hope these slides have given you an idea that you have a lot of power and control on where you're on the trajectory or the pivot of your career. I'll leave with the last couple of slides. Now, a very, very important thing, which is where I think the biggest block exists, is your mindset and attitude towards success. Right. And this is something that comes from neuro-linguistic programming. That's how I got it. I'm sure it's a well-researched, human psychology thing, that people approach life in 3 different ways. One way they approach life is to believe that if I get the opportunity, so I join a company and I keep trying to go, I'm waiting for this opportunity to say, do data analytics project, or to go to, I will learn. So they say, if I get an assignment to Germany, then I will learn German. And then I will be achieving my goal. One of my goals was to be a fluent German speaker. Or one of my goals was to be a recognized data analytics expert. But I'm waiting for this opportunity. And then I will learn, and then I will achieve. So this is a person who says, I have to have the opportunity, and then I will do the learning, and then I will become that, that kind of person and that person is a victim. It's called the victim, because the person is always putting the control in other person's hand. You put the control in the hand of the company to give you this opportunity, right? They're thinking, okay, I've worked so hard, 10 years I've worked, it's my turn next, I'm going to wait. And that's the victim. The other person is the do. I will keep learning analytics. I spend money on Udemy, do this course, that course, everything. Because I am now competent, somebody will think of me and give me the opportunity. And then I will become this this expert, this person, this achiever. This person is the worker. They're constantly going to be working because they're not controlling the second element of opportunity. They're only controlling the learning opportunity part of it. The third part is and I think the most successful person, the person first has the attitude and the mindset and the attribute of a winner. They believe they are going to succeed. They've already succeeded in their mind. So they achieve, not the achievement here is not the achievement of becoming, say, a data analysis expert. They have achieved the mindset of a successful person, of a winner. And they go and they knock doors and so they act. The act here is not learning it's not learning data analysis. The act here is to knock any door possible to get the opportunity. When you believe you are deserving and you are a winner, you will knock any door possible to get the opportunity. And then because of this attitude, things will come your way. So the question I have therefore is, are you getting in your own way of becoming an internal audit superstar? Right? Is the mindset and attitude that you have for success? I'm waiting, and nothing is happening, and therefore I'm not succeeding, is giving power to somebody else. But if you take your own power and somebody says, okay, you know what would you like your role to be in 5 years? The number of times people don't even have clarity as to what their 5-year plan is in an interview is quite disappointing. Which means they have not even thought about where they're going to be in 5 years. How will you plan a strategy to get there if you don't know what you're going to be in 5 years? So happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony, right? A beautiful saying by Mahatma Gandhi. Please reflect on that. I have run out of time, but I'm going to leave you with one last slide. As I said, I have embraced coaching. A coach has great questions for your answers, right? A mentor has great answers for your questions. Both of these are powerful interventions. And while people always believe, look, I can open one workbook and I will do my own self-assessment and I will find a way to find my path. The truth is, when you have an accountability partner in the form of a team member, a manager, a mentor, or a coach, are you sure that's good enough? Are you sure that's the right thing to do? When people ask questions like a mirror, your scope expands. And that's why even as auditors, while I'm sure the process owner can run a fantastic process, the role of an auditor is to invoke awareness by asking questions about whether or not doing enough in their process. And that's what we do. But auditors who ask good questions are wonderful auditors. So taking that same capability to your personal life, find a way to ask yourself those important questions. And this will, I can't do justice in 45 minutes to this topic, but I hope I have given you some awareness. I believe that the first step to change is awareness, then there's commitment, and then there's change. So, how strong are your intentions, commitment, and enthusiasm for taking action to move forward in your journey towards an internal audit superstar? These slides will come to you again by Gandhiji. I'll just leave you with this quote. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So I wish you all well. What makes you uncomfortable is your biggest opportunity for growth. Embrace that discomfort. You should celebrate being uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, it means you're growing. And then here is the read list I promised you. And I want to acknowledge a few resources. The Coaching Academy, the Coaching Academy and the Regal Unlimited Coaching School are places where I have done some training. The material is fantastic. I've done Google and Forbes as well. I have given you my LinkedIn and Twitter details. Please do connect with me on these platforms if you would like to, hear more, share thoughts, share how this session has made a difference to you, if at all, and if you want to get some clarity. Thank you all, and all the best.
Superb, ma'am. Your engaging and energetic session today made our around 2,500 participants inspire, and now they would definitely know that they are a superb star of an internal audit or not. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
So before we conclude our session, our participants are eagerly waiting for their doubts and Chetan sir, the participants want certain queries in their mind. So I will request you to solve their queries.
Sure, please.
So the first question is, culture is a tone set at the top, not only by the management, but the board as well. So, what can be the role that an internal audit can play if the culture flowing from the board itself is not appropriate?
See, basically, the reporting of internal audit is as a functional reporting to the board. So if the tone at the top is not correct, I think we have to highlight, irrespective of our reporting. So there are different level of escalation. No doubt, board is on the top of even to the MD and chairman. But we have to sound out, basically, nothing else. We have to sound off if any non-cultural, unethical things are even happening and the wrong culture is being propagated down the line. We have to sound it off. It is as simple as that. Otherwise, we won't be playing really our role as an internal auditor. Otherwise, we are playing as an unethical and incorrect role on our front as well. So you have to bold enough to flag it out and raise it up.
Yes, sir. The next question is culture audit or inquiry to be done mandatory by a statutory auditor before accepting engagement?
No, that's what I'm saying during my presentation, Charmi. Basically, the mandate is right now at American and European country, and that too not for manufacturing. It is for financial services. And India, that is not mandatory, but it is good to have as a better practice. And as I told, the kind of replication and the finding will really great way help to the top management and to the board itself. It's not mandatory for Indian companies. Good to have, not should to have.
Okay, sir. The next question is, what are the global trends for internal audit?
So this question is for me.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm saying. In a foreign country, US and UK, this is a mandatory, and these people are being done audit on the culture, and the reports are being propagated not only to the board and the top management, it is going to the regulator as well. In India, it is not there. Globally, yes, it is there.
Okay. The next question is, for internal audit, what are the liabilities of an internal auditor?
Is it a question again to me?
Yes, sir.
See, liability to internal audit. See, right now we are appointed under Section 138 in an Indian context. I'm talking from Indian context, not in a global context. So yes, it is the liability appointment is happened under Section 138 of Companies Act 2013. So if anything, even we do anything unethical, or if we are found to be, being party to, say it is the classic case of Satyam we discussed during my session. So if you are a party to, if you are doing yourself or you are supporting to the management, maybe at any level, made CFO, CEO, CMO, or party to that also, then I think that is not acceptable. And you have seen the case studies are there, live case study in India as well. You have seen ILFS, you have seen even those cases also, auditors are being penalized, and some of them, the cases at Satyam, the people are under bar. So yes, so it is not only the stakeholder as a management. See, internal audit, even inside or outside, we have to take the ownership if we are getting into those wrong practices, and will be penalized equally like any other management team.
True, sir. And the last question is, the basic objective of internal audit are to find any leakages in the system, to find any deficiency implementation of system, fraud, so and so forth. So the participant is like, in my view, one of the main objectives should be identifying the areas in financial function, marketing function, or production function, is to find out areas to improve the profitability of the organization. So also how to improve organizational structure or any flaws to achieve the objectives of internal audit.
See, basically, internal auditor has two set of services. One we call assurance, other we call advisory. What you talked about, those processes, review, marketing, production, financial, treasury, that will fall under assurance service, which we are essentially required to do it. The cost saving, structural, suggestion, advisory, those are all basically a cost saving. These are all advisory service. So this is how internal auditors play a role. based on the right now as such, we don't have something like Caro, like the way statutory auditor is required to do it. Still, it is considered to be a management function even after Section 130 has come. So it is again our scope is being discussed with the board. They are the one who appoint us. They are the one who leverage and fixes our scope of work. So that is how our role in these two territory at this point of time. And role as a forensic, our role is not to not to even prevent. It's a primary responsibility of management. Basically, we are supposed to highlight those gaps and to show how it can be detected and corrected, and we can show some means and ways of preventing it. But essentially, responsibility lies with the top management. That's the CFO and CEO. Basically, to be very specific to that.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. This comes to the end of the questions and answer which were asked by the participants to your good self.
Oh,
Thank you so
sure.
much. As all good things come to an end, so must this evening, but only to pave path for a better one in future. Till we meet again, let us hope that this year proves to be prosperous and fulfilling for each one of us, and we keep setting our benchmarks higher. Let us pledge for a magnificent future progress of the country led by our own members. Thank you, Chairman, sir, Vice Chairman, sir, of the committee, Secretariats of the committee, and the entire team behind the session has made this session possible. On this note, I see a Charmisha sign off for the day, wishing you a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ISB. Thank you,
Thank you
Bhavani.
so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Bhavani
Charmi,
ma'am.
Thank you, Chetan, Chami, and everyone. Thank